Did she say what kind of animal it was that attacked her?
So yeah, they're saying it's some type of animal attack. Statistically, there's been more animal attacks, mysterious deaths, people gone missing.
In other news, local authorities remain perplexed by the animal attacks.
What attacked you in the woods?
An animal. What else could it have been?
Welcome to It Was an Animal Attack, home of the supernatural drama series. I'm Fadzai.
And I'm Sandile.
And today we will be wrapping up the journey of the myth, the legend, the baddest bitch of all, Katherine Pierce, aka Katerina Petrova.
Katerina, let's go.
I actually do have a correction.
Ooh,
but,
okay.
Once again, it is baked into my notes, so I will get to it when I get to it.
Fair enough.
It was something we'd been wondering, and I was like, oh, okay, so this is actually canon in the show, even though I swear they said something contradictory to the seasons before, but it's now canon.
That's part of the course with this show, so let's not be surprised.
That's true. That's true.
I don't have a correction per se, but I have a laundry list of things to drop on you.
Okay.
So the first one is not a correction, it's a clarification. In the previous session, we were talking about, tangentially, it was about the names of the originals, right?
Oh.
And we were trying to figure out why so many of the originals' names were Hebrew and not like Germanic. And I think the conclusion we reached is correct, is that like they chose modern Scandinavian names for the originals rather than historical. And that's kind of like the disconnect there because they're from 10th century. But I said in the session, I was, shall we say, disinclined to believe that Christianity had spread to Scandinavia in the 10th century. It's closer than you'd think. It was around that time, in fact, that Christianity was beginning to enter the Nordic countries. 8th to 12th century, some sources say.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it started to like gain speed in the 11th and 12th centuries, but certainly just before that, it was starting to happen. But the names at that time were like Anglo-Saxon names. And also it would be a situation where it's like some Nordic leader who was in England and became enamored by the religion and studied in that area and then came back and was like, now we need to do that, guys. And then the people were like, hell no, we're pagans. We love our Nordic gods. We read only prose and poetic Edda here. What are you talking about? I don't think the Eddas existed yet. But anyways.
Our non-queer phobic gods. I mean, listen, if history had to unfold in the colonizing way in which it did, I would have just taken the pagan Western European gods. At least they weren't queer phobic.
At least they've got like a gender non-conforming shapeshifter gods. It's like, come on, guys. That's episode specific. The other stuff, nothing to do with the episode, but just like general Vampire Diaries stuff, specifically to do with the three main actors.
Oh?
Primarily Nina Dobrev. Did you know she was in Cape Town this week?
I didn't know that.
Did you not?
I
Okay.
mean, I'm trying to disconnect from all these celebrities because
Yeah,
they end up disappointing. But I will admit, a little thrill ran through my nervous system as you said that.
Someone told me and I was like, oh, how do I find a way to get there? It's like, and do what? I don't know.
Get her to appear on the podcast. Get her to read Catherine's lines for us.
That's the thought that crossed my mind. And it wasn't
For free,
even in any
imagine.
It wasn't even in any like Vampire Diaries or otherwise pop culture capacity. She was here for like humanitarian purposes, asterisk, because it's called the Earthshot Prize, which was started by Prince, which is the one who matters.
Oh, I knew William was here.
Yes,
because I was out with a friend and then one of their friends works in media and she was like, oh, I can't stay out too late because in the morning I got to get up early and interview Prince William who's coming here. And then when it was all over social media that a lot of Cape Town's homeless people had been relocated, quote unquote, from the CBD, people were like, oh, in the same week that Prince William is coming here. What a coincidence.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to be a good, presentable colony to the prince. But anyway, so like I said, humanitarian asterisk, this Earthshot Prize thing they were doing in Cape Town. But that's what she was here for, because she's some sort of UNICEF ambassador or something like that. And I think I saw a picture of her with Prince William and like 2 models. I think it was, I forget their names, but one of them is like one of those European, really tall, married to some also famous person models. And then the other one was that I don't know if she's black or brown, and she has like vitiligo. She has like noticeable vitiligo, like the lower half of her face. She's like famous. I wish I knew anything about modeling. I would know her name.
I don't know models. I barely know actors' names, and I'm an actor.
Actors have a better chance because I'm on IMDb all the time. But
I'm on IMDb in a different context.
Yeah, you're on IMDb. I'm paging through it. You exist there.
My little humble brag.
So that's Nina. Paul Wesley, this is less like world-wise, but personal. My sister met Paul Wesley this week.
What?
Yeah.
Which one? The one in America?
Well, she's not in America right now. She's in Sweden. She's studying abroad. And she met with Paul Wesley at a con that was happening in Sweden. I think it was Comic-Con.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, Kat Graham was in Cape Town last year for our Comic-Con.
Yes. I didn't get a chance to go to Comic-Con. I was so disappointed.
I was there, but I didn't get to meet her because the time that the meet and greet for her was happening, like to get like a picture with her, I was too late for that. But I did get to hear her speak.
Oh, that's good.
So that was nice.
I'm gonna send you a picture now. There's my sister with Paul Wesley.
Pavel Vasilevsky. He is looking very mature.
Right?
But I always have to remember that these people were playing teenagers when they were like 20 to 25.
Yeah, he's like in his 40s now. And he looks like a 40-year-old man, which is good. I saw, he does those Insta stories for his close circle, but
he's
it's always like...
He's 40, but he does Insta stories like a 50-year-old disconnected, ordinary TV sitcom dad. It's so
exactly
adorable.
Which, I mean, what else is he doing right now? Let him have his fun.
He doesn't know anything. Like, the fans will be using all this modern internet language to speak to him, and he has no idea what they're saying.
Your stiffusy is so... I lost it when I saw that one. Actually, I'll post that on the pod account because it truly is such a ripper. But yes, she met Paul. She was at the Q&A and she was like, "I'll shout out your podcast." I was like, "Please," and she was like, "No, I didn't get a chance." I'm like, you know what? That's fair. These things are always like 10 minutes long.
That's so cool.
But speaking of not having a lot to do, did you know that Ian Somerhalder had retired from acting?
I did. Did I not share? I think I shared a tweet that was a reaction to that.
Yes, the recent discussion of that. But as it turns out, he's been retired since like the beginning of this year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I looked it up and I saw an article from like February that was like, retired actor Ian Somerhalder, and I was like, oh, all right.
If that's what he wants to do, I mean, look, it's not an easy industry to be in, both just in terms of getting work, but also just like psychologically, whether you're employed or not.
Absolutely.
So if people get over it at some stage, I'm like, I understand. I hope I never get to that point, but I can completely understand people being like, yeah, I'm done with this. Peace out.
And clearly him and his family have the cachet to just like retire to a farm. So, great for you. You've got that kind of money.
He's got them CW royalties. Nikki's got that Twilight money. I think they'll be fine.
Listen, he's got that bourbon brand. He's fine. He's doing great. And good for him. Anyways, okay. That's all my shit out the gate.
Okay. So let's dive into it. The last time we saw Katherine was season 3. She dipped after setting Stefan on his I'm gonna be angry trajectory. Like, my humanity is back. Anger is the first feeling I'm letting in. So thanks for that, Katherine. Always just planting the healthiest seeds in this universe.
Yep. It's a legacy.
And then we don't see her for a long time, but we do get a special little pseudo appearance, which I love.
I was like, the scene absolutely has nothing to do with her, but I knew you want to talk about it.
I have to.
It's so good. What are you gonna do?
So, season 4, episode 6. We all go a little mad sometimes.
Ain't that the truth?
Elena has just killed Connor, the hunter, in the previous episode. The hunter's curse is now tormenting her with all these hallucinations. It's mainly Connor, like, trying to make her feel guilty about, committing the sin of murder. And, she's taken a human life and she's terrible and she would be better off dead. She should just kill herself. And she's like, no, it wasn't my fault. It was in self-defense. I'm not a bad person. You were hurting Jeremy.
Yeah.
And then I guess the sentient hunter's curse is like, okay, let's change tactics. The apparition of Connor says, you don't want to listen to me? Fine. And suddenly Katherine Pierce is in his place. And she's like, then how about you and I have a little chat?
Yeah. Oh.
And Elena's like, Katherine? And Katherine goes, did you miss me?
And it's like,
and I was like, you know what, Katherine?
bitch.
I certainly did.
Where have you been, Luca? Come on.
Because, I mean, she'd been gone for basically everything that happened since Michael was killed. She was gone by the time Elijah was undaggered again, and we met Cole and Finn, and Esther was resurrected. She was gone for the entire Evaloric and Vampiloric arc, and all of that nonsense. And she was gone as Elena became a vampire. So getting to see this pretend version of her was a nice little treat, because it was like, she's a fun character. And who better to psychologically unravel Elena than her evil shadow self? You know, it's like we said in season 2, doppelgangers try to undo each other's lives. Clearly, this sentient hunter's curse was like the best way to get my hooks into Elena's brain and make her feel like she's an awful person now that she's a vampire who's killed, is to conjure up what is often seen as the darkest version of what she could be, Katherine Pierce.
Yeah, it is the exact right comparison to make, especially since like they had been making those comparisons in season 2 kind of superficially, because it's like, well, not superficially, but in the context of their oh no, we're post-election now. In the context of their circumstances was the comparison being made earlier, and as we progress, it was in the context of her relationship to the Salvatore brothers. And then as you get into season 3, it's in the context of your behavior when faced with trying circumstances, and how you can grow into a more scheming person, into a person who's like manipulating and wheeling and dealing and maybe making choices about who gets thrown under the bus because you and your loved ones need to survive. At every point in that journey through season 3, the comparison is there in the background that like, ooh, she's becoming maybe a lot more like Katherine than she'd like to admit. So now to have become a vampire and to have killed someone by her own hand, the only vampires she has personally killed, quote unquote, have been originals with a dagger. So she's gotten away pretty hands clean thus far. This is the first time she has taken a life. And that's, of course, going to send her spiraling down that path. Curse or no?
Yeah. And the curse does seem to, apart from just giving her these visual and audio hallucinations, it is also seemingly messing with her perception of herself, because she's feeling a lot, I mean, her emotions are heightened as well, but I think she's feeling a lot worse than she would be if she was completely lucid. At the end of the day, this is a man who knifed April Young, an innocent human girl, and left her to bleed out as bait for vampires, tried to blow up Matt and Jeremy, threatened her last living relative. She's definitely within her rights to have attacked this man in self-defense, but because of what the curse is doing to her psyche, she's now just like on this spiral of, oh my gosh, I'm a terrible, monstrous person. Nobody alive has ever been worse than me. But then, despite the fact that she exists in a world with Klaus and Catherine and Damon and all these other people.
But also, to give some credence to the idea of it being her own sort of spiral outside of the curse, is that like, that does tend to happen when you're someone who has a very strong identity rooted in like a specific thing. And for her, it's that sense of goodness. It's that sense of being the protagonist who, despite being pushed to the edge, ultimately is empathetic, respects human life, treasures human life, blah, 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 and being in opposition to the Klauses and the Catherines and so forth. So there is a sense of like that schism that happens when you have to then be the person. She very well could be seeing that as like, it doesn't matter who he was, it matters that I killed him. You know?
I guess,
so,
yeah. I guess that is the thing that's always separated her from Catherine. She's not one to say, better you die than I. Rather, she's like, I killed him because Sire Bond, but also because he was threatening Jeremy, and that is a thing that I will not allow. It's not that I'm happy to just mow through people if they're in my way.
Right. And we're in the middle of her vampire crisis of like, who am I as a vampire? No longer human, I guess, but I'm trying to hold on to that humanity. But what if I can't? Because now I'm just evil. You know, that whole thing.
And she's never wanted to be like Catherine. It's always been, you know, something she prides herself on, that she is nothing like Katherine Pierce. And the vision of Catherine that is now before her says all the horrible things that Elena fears most about herself and her current vampire status. It cuts so much more deeply than the stuff Connor's been saying. Because at the end of the day, who is Connor? She doesn't know him. He showed up as a threat.
Groomed her brother, then tried to kill him.
Catherine, on the other hand, is, I guess because the curse is in Elena's mind, so it can use all the information that it finds in there. So everything it knows that Catherine would know and would think about this situation, it's now using.
Yeah.
And pretend Catherine is being so petty. Elena's like sitting on the bed, sniffling, like under all this torment and being like, oh my gosh, what was me, drying her eyes. And Catherine is like, ugh, don't you ever stop crying. God. And then she says, poor Elena, always the victim. Except now you're a killer. What does Stefan think of the new you? And I'm like, ooh,
right.
Of course. Stefan and Elena aren't even together at this point. But of course, the part of her mind that houses Catherine and all her fears surrounding that definitely cares about how Stefan perceives it. Because she knows how disgusted Stefan is with everything Katherine Pierce is.
Exactly.
Catherine is like, oh, the girl that Stefan fell in love with is gone now. You're just like me. Or maybe worse. I'm like, damn, maybe worse?
It's like, Elena, come on now. You know the laundry list. Let's get out of the spiral, babe.
Elena says, no, I made a mistake killing Connor, but I can do better. And then Catherine's like, no, you can't. You're a vampire and you will kill again. It'll change you and it'll keep changing you until you're just like me. Ooh. Which is, as we've said, of course, that's her worst fear. Mm-hmm. She insists that she's nothing like Catherine, but Catherine says, no, Elena, honey, I was you before you even existed. And when Stefan knew the real me, he hated me. And now he's gonna hate you too. But at least you still have Damon. Which, such a Catherine line to end on.
She's been pushing that shit from day one.
She drops some more barbs, which are, of course, cutting to Elena. Things she fears. Things I noticed at the time when this was airing, because it was season 4. Fatigue was starting to set in with this show and its characters, and people were starting to make all their little criticisms. And a lot of people were tired of Elena.
Yeah.
Not me, but a lot of people were hating on Elena. They were like, ugh, Elena's boring. She's annoying. She's...
Yeah, she's the center of the tension. It's like she's the main character, yeah.
In this scene, Catherine says so many things that I had seen fans saying, such as when she says, ugh, don't you ever stop crying. She goes on to say, you were such a good girl when you were human, always willing to sacrifice yourself for your friends. Except, weren't they usually the ones who ended up getting hurt? I'm like, oh no! And she says, Bonnie lost her grams because of you. Her mom turned into a vampire because of you. You know, she probably secretly hates you. Did you ever think that? I bet she'd be relieved if you were gone.
Oh, no.
And I was like, yeah, that's the thing I've seen the fans saying. They'd be like, oh, Bonnie has suffered so much, which she had, of course. Elena's friends, Bonnie in particular, have often suffered for her, but it's like, it's all this horrible stuff that obviously Elena is aware of and has feared, that it's now being thrown back in her face with the ultimate goal of trying to convince her to kill
herself. Yeah. Suicidal ideation made manifest as Katherine Pierce is my actual nightmare. She would win against me. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Oh. I mean, she almost wins against Elena. She says to Elena, which again, something that Elena has been saying, I think, since about season 2, when she learns about Klaus and the sacrifice, and she's like, oh, it's not because I met you, Stefan, or because we fell in love. It's because of me. I'm the one who brought all of this drama into my friends' lives.
Which is like, by being born? A thing no one chooses.
How dare you be the doppelganger?
You know? How dare you resemble your 500-year-old ancestor?
The Catherine apparition says, your very existence brings people nothing but pain. Oh. And then she goes on to say, I mean, maybe it was worth it when you were worth it, but you're nothing now. Oh. You're a monster, Elena. You deserve to die.
Ooh.
Which, oof. That's essentially all the apparition of Catherine does in this episode. Several episodes later, episode 12, A View to a Kill. I don't know if that's a reference to something.
Let's find out. I thought it was A View to Kill, I'll be honest.
I also thought it was A View to Kill. I only realized now while doing this research that it's A View to a Kill.
It's a movie from 1985. It's a spy film. It's a James Bond movie. That's what it is.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
not seeing
Roger
the James
Moore,
Bond
James Bond.
correlation in this episode.
What happens in this one?
I think,
Grace Jones.
is this the one where Cole is killed? Or is this after when Cole is
You
killed?
tell me. I don't remember.
I wouldn't have written that down because it has nothing to do with Catherine.
I think so. I remember from the White Oak Ash Dagger episode, strangely enough, that episode 12 is when Cole, 1, snatches all the daggers, 2, compels Damon to go after Jeremy because Jeremy has the hunter's map on him to find the cure to immortality, and he doesn't want that happening. And then 3, I think it's also the episode where him and Rebecca go at each other, one with the White Oak Stake and one with the Silver Dagger. So yes, I think that's the episode we're in.
I love that scene.
Right.
Because I was like, Cole is like, oh my God, is this who we are? And then turns around and gets ready to kill her properly.
Right. So I guess it is who we are, apparently.
But I was going to say, episode 12, A View to a Kill. Bonnie has temporarily sealed Klaus in the living room of the Gilbert house. Her expression charged magic after Elena and Jeremy killed Cole. She binds the spell to the new moon and says it will only last 3 days, which I assume is like indicative of how people used to believe the full moon was like a 3-day thing and the new moon was a 3-day thing, which we now know is not accurate.
I mean,
scientifically speaking,
Right.
the full moon as an actual like event lasts for like maybe a few minutes or hours, and therefore it's only on 1 day per month.
mathematically speaking, yes. But esoterically, magically, the 3-day works very beautifully. Triple
suppose.
Goddess, also, there's a vibe of that. But then, like, I think that one is like waning, waxing full.
Yeah, I think that's the lunar cycle.
Yeah. But anyway.
After Bonnie tells them the mechanics of her spell, Jeremy grimly jokes that if the Mystic Falls gang fails to locate the cure in time to force feed it to Klaus before he's released from Bonnie's spell, they might as well look up Katherine Pierce and see if she wants some company in hiding because Klaus will come after them and kill them all.
All right.
So just a cute little name drop for Katherine in that episode.
I don't remember Catherine being relevant at all in this episode. Where
I
are we
just like
going?
that they acknowledge that, yeah, we've angered Klaus to the extent that if we don't manage to kill him, we need to take a leaf out of Catherine's book and spend the next 5 centuries on the run. In episode 13, Into the Wild, Elena, Stefan, Damon, Bonnie, Jeremy, Rebecca, and Atticus Shane
Walk into a bar.
are all on Silas Island. Yes, I'm calling it that. To get the cure for vampirism/immortality. As they walk through the woods, Jeremy is attacked by a local indigenous, I believe, inhabitant of the island. They keep switching back and forth between saying the island is empty, but then saying that there are locals here. So
It's almost like it
feels
all
weird.
bullshit. Yeah.
But it seems that there are some indigenous people here. The man fires an arrow at Jeremy. Elena saves him with her vamp speed. And then before the man can fire another arrow, he is killed when a hatchet is hurled into his back by
I think
an
it was a
unseen assailant.
tomahawk, which is further insult
Oh,
to
was it a
injury,
tomahawk?
But yeah.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Well, I guess work with what you have lying around on the island. I don't know.
Now that I think about it, they would find an island that's occupied by indigenous people and say this island's empty. So I guess that's
That's the. Anyway,
America.
Later on, another local, a witch named, was it Masak?
Yes, Masak.
Snatches Jeremy. Shane gives the rest of the group the slip and meets up with Masak, who has bound and gagged Jeremy, and he's dragging him along. Shane assumes Masak was the one who saved Jeremy with the hatchet, axe, tomahawk thingy, but he's like, nope, I did no such thing.
Yeah, I know you saw a tomahawk flying and you assumed it was a native person. That's actually kind of crazy of you. And I need you to check your biases and get off my island. I'm so sorry.
I love it. It's like, why would you assume it was me?
Yeah. In fact, I have a pistol.
He's a witch. He wouldn't
I've
need
got
to be throwing
magic.
weapons around.
I never see him throw one spell, which is so frustrating to me.
But yeah, Shane is like, there's somebody else on this island, I guess, who's trying to keep Jeremy safe, which means there's somebody else who wants their Brotherhood of the Five Hunter to, find Silas's tomb. And finally, in episode 14, Down the Rabbit Hole. I get that reference. That's an Alice in Wonderland reference. Masak, having helped Shane screw over Elena, Rebecca, and the Salvatores by getting him Jeremy and Bonnie, receives his payment, the Tombstone of Ketsia.
Yeah.
And after that, he just deuces out and leaves Shane with Bonnie and Jeremy to magically open Silas's tomb. Meanwhile, Vaughn, another hunter of the five who has turned up on the island in the previous episode and ambushed Damon, is walking through the woods. He's got Damon tied up and bound to him, and Damon assumes that he is the one who saved Jeremy with the axe. And then Vaughn is like, nope, I'm not. And then they come across Masak's dead body lying on the forest floor. His throat has been slashed. Ketsia's tombstone is nowhere to be seen. And it's like, oh, okay, somebody else is running around this island unseen and has already killed 2 people. Bonnie performs a spell on Jeremy's hunter tattoos and opens Silas's tomb. The resulting seismic effect causes some rocks to injure Shane. So then Bonnie and Jeremy okay, bye. We're going without you. Honestly, deserved.
After every awful thing he did to get there, it's just dropped by your human insignificance. One broken leg and you're out. You're out of the race, buddy. You need to be airlifted. So sad.
Elsewhere, the revelation that there is only one dose of the cure causes the remaining members of the party to fracture. Rebecca ditches Stefan and Elena and ventures into Silas's tomb on her own. By that point, Damon and Vaughn have already arrived at the tomb entrance. Vaughn neutralizes Rebecca with some regular wood through the heart and incapacitates Damon by tying him to this natural pillar formation with a cord around his neck. And then Vaughn rushes off into the tomb to locate Silas and kill him. Stefan and Elena arrive, and Damon insists that Elena go after the cure, and Stefan stays behind to free Damon. Elena wanders on her own through the tunnels trying to find Bonnie and Jeremy, but she realizes she's not alone. Someone is flitting around in the shadows. She hears a woman's voice nearby calling out her name and the swishing sound of someone moving at super speed. Elena moves to the source of the sound, but there's no one there. But when she turns back around, she sees someone just out of frame who the audience can't see. And Elena gets this look of shock that quickly turns to anger as she snarls, "No!" And an unseen assailant rushes at her and the scene ends. Meanwhile, Bonnie and Jeremy locate Silas's resting place, and they realize that 2,000 years of desiccation has caused him to, essentially petrify. And now the only way to retrieve the cure from his rock-hard grasp is to feed him enough blood to... Okay, rock as in, actual rock. And I said rock-hard grasp.
Interesting way to phrase it is all I'm saying.
He's literally rock-like hold on
his
this
solid, firm grasp.
Oh, no!
Okay, Danielle Steele, I see you.
They gotta feed him enough blood to soften his tissues and loosen his grip. Unfortunately, Vaughn catches up to them before they can do anything, and he stabs Bonnie, grievously injuring her. Meanwhile, Stefan manages to free Damon, and Damon tells him to go off and help the others get the cure. Damon is still weak from his fight with Vaughn, so he stays behind to revive Rebecca by removing the wood from her heart. Back in Silas's cavern, Jeremy has a brief scuffle with Vaughn, but he is ultimately unmatched because, Vaughn has been a hunter
far
longer.
more experienced,
He's older and more skilled. Yeah. Vaughn is just about to kill him when Elena vamp speeds into the cavern. She yanks Vaughn off Jeremy and almost bites into his jugular with her fangs, but Jeremy cries out and reminds Elena about the hunter's curse. Hearing this, Elena rolls her eyes in exasperation, but settles for knocking Vaughn out by throwing him on the ground. We then cut back to Stefan, who's walking through the tunnels looking for the rest of the gang, and suddenly he runs into a feeble Elena, lying bloodied against a wall, and very much not with Bonnie and Jeremy right now.
You gotta love that the first moment back, she's already doing it. She's already doing it.
Stefan asks Elena what happened, and Elena's like, she's here. So back by Silas, Elena, who I will say, immediately I was like, oh, okay, so it's you. But if anybody else still took a moment, I will say in this episode, we'd already seen two psychic illusions of people.
Yes.
Because Bonnie saw Grams and Shane saw his wife. So you could maybe be a bit confused, although this Elena has been interacting with physical matter. So, it's...
But maybe that's just what you're seing.
Perhaps,
that's the power of Silas, man.
Yeah.
Somebody can get in your mind and show you things. Ugh.
So, not Elena is still trying to perform her role fairly well. She asks Jeremy Jeremy if he's okay. He's like, I'm fine, but like Bonnie is bleeding out on the floor there. You need to feed her your vampire blood. And then not Elena is like, I will in a second. I just need to make sure you're okay, Jeremy. And it's like, the mask is slipping a little bit.
Queen, your
Because
mask
Jeremy
is
is
slipping.
clearly fine. And he's also got supernatural, like, physical upgrades at this point in the show. Bonnie is dying on the floor.
Yeah.
Jeremy is like, I'm fine. What are you doing? And then not Elena is like, look over there, Jeremy. Like the cure, you know that thing we've been working all season to get? It's like right there.
Crazy.
Like. And I'm like, okay, this performance is now bad.
She's out of practice. She was not expecting she'd have to carry it across the finish line. She's struggling.
I'm like, no, sweetie. Anyone who does long distance running knows that you don't slow down as you reach the finish line. If anything, you hit
speed
maximum
up.
speed with whatever energy you've got left.
You conserve for most of the race and then you sprint in the last leg.
Jeremy is like, please save Bonnie. The cure will literally be sitting right there after we've, made sure your friend doesn't die. And he crouches down at Bonnie's side. And at this, our pretend Elena rolls her eyes and is like, "Ugh, God, I forgot what a brat you were." She's like, I'm done playing nice. She vamp speeds over to him, slices open his wrist, and brings it to Silas's mouth. And then Jeremy's like, Katherine!
Yeah.
I must say, I was stunned that she was back in the story. One of the last people I thought I'd be seeing on this remote island, no less. Because we're not even in Mystic Falls at this point. I'm like, what the hell is she doing here?
How did you get here? And then you do the math and you're like, well, obviously at some point during the preceding 13 episodes, everyone discovering like, okay, we're gonna go for the race for the cure. She impersonated Elena one time. And it was much easier now that Elena's a vampire, right? Because there's less difference between the two of them now. Got everything she needed to know and then waited.
Either that or she had some compelled spy just like pass through town.
Yeah.
Since everyone who lives there is on Vervain.
True.
It was wild to see her. It's such a funny thing because we had not seen the real Katherine Pierce since season 3. The last time the character had sort of appeared had been a hallucination. And now she's here in this season that largely has nothing to do with her. There's no clear connection to Katherine Pierce and all that she is. And in season 2, we had learned to get paranoid about the Elena-Katherine swap-outs. But now we've like long since stopped expecting it. And indeed, in the last episode when she was really here, she dupes Michael and Klaus and Damon into thinking she's Elena because we didn't even realize Katherine was in Mystic Falls at that point.
Yep.
We'd last seen her being fed off by Michael. And now it's like, oh, we've gotten so good at expecting this change. And now we've been lulled into this sense
False
of security.
sense of security. Which in a meta way is exactly what she does. Right? Like, in a way, Katherine rose above the story and played us for fools.
Anyway, Katherine says, it's been too long, little Gilbert. As Jeremy's blood starts to revive Silas, Katherine, I guess, decides Silas is taking too long to loosen up, so she rips into Jeremy's jugular with her fangs and forces his bleeding neck down onto Silas's mouth. Silas lets go of the cure in order to grab Jeremy as he feeds on him. Katherine snatches up the cure and vamp speeds away, leaving Jeremy to be killed by Silas.
Yeah. What a note to come back on. After, like we said last session, leaving on a surprisingly good note for Katherine Pierce. To come back and kill the main character's brother is like, well, screw all of that. I'm back in true form, baby. It's an interesting choice.
And I don't even know whether she cared whether or not Jeremy would survive being fed off by Silas. Yeah. If he'd escaped, I'm sure she would have been fine with that too. But she was just like, look, I got what I wanted. What happens after that doesn't matter to me.
She's sacrificed people she's cared more about. Who's Jeremy?
Certainly.
You know?
So the next episode, Stand By Me, she's not present, which actually adds to the mystery of what the heck she's up to, because now she's left. I believe she has Ketsia's tombstone and the cure. The tombstone from Bonnie's angle with pretend Shane, who was really Silas. It's like, oh, we need that to do the magic that I want to do. The cure is just like, oh, everyone now wants the single dose of the cure. Later on, Damon tells Rebecca, they're still on the island, that Katherine has absconded with the cure, and he theorizes that Katherine must have been spying on all of them for weeks to learn about their quest for Silas's tomb and the cure for immortality. Stefan, back in Mystic Falls, speaks to Caroline about Tyler. Tyler has at this point gone into hiding in order to escape Klaus's wrath. Stefan comforts Caroline by reminding her that Katherine managed to survive being on the run from Klaus for 500 years, so it's not impossible for Tyler to do, even if it isn't easy. He then surmises that this must be why Katherine wanted the cure at all. to bargain with Klaus for her freedom. Back on the island, Damon and Rebecca locate and detain Vaughn. And Vaughn admits that Katherine sought him out when he was minding his own business, tracking dens of vampires in Colorado, and she said that she could help him find Silas. Why he would trust a vampire is anybody's guess, but he says Katherine already knew all about the Hunter's Mark and the cure, so Rebecca asks how Katherine had all that info, and Vaughn reveals that new Season 4 character Haley the Werewolf was Katherine's little spy on the inside. Haley had secretly been working with Professor Shane to screw over Tyler and the hybrids in exchange for Shane finding her birth parents, but it seems that even more secretly, she's been feeding Katherine details about the entire Cure and Silas quest.
That one's crazier to me. Like, I don't... When would they have met?
It's later elaborated on, but I'd like to hear your opinion on it, because I was a bit confused by what this means.
Okay. Then I'll hold my comments.
Vaughn says that Katherine found Haley in New Orleans, which we know is an important part of Haley's story.
Yeah. Oh, I just wanted to say episode 15 is called Stand By. I think a lot of season 4 episodes are named after movies. This one is Stand By Me.
I have watched Stand By Me when I was very young.
It's based on a Stephen King novel called The Body, and I believe in the movie, these kids are like hiking through a swamp to go find a body. So I guess the thing about Jeremy dying on the island and then they take his body back, that's like kind of the reference there. So yeah.
Also a very famous song.
Oh, yes,
Stand
of
By
course.
Me. So episode 16, Bring It On, which is obviously named after the cheerleader movie franchise, because Elena briefly becomes a cheerleader again. Haley is off on her own. She skipped town the night that Klaus slaughtered his hybrids and murdered Mayor Lockwood. She's then attacked by a vampire we've never seen before, but luckily for her, Klaus arrives and saves her, biting the vampire with his venomous hybrid teeth and scaring him off. It is then revealed that Haley actually summoned Klaus to her because she's in trouble. Katherine is after her. So Klaus mocks Haley for being foolish enough to make a deal with Katherine, whom he of course refers to as Katerina Petrova. And I'm like, hey, at least when Elijah says it, he puts the accent there. He's like,
it's like if you're not going to put in the effort, why bother, you know?
But he tells Haley that Katherine used her to find the cure, and now Haley is nothing but a loose end who will be lucky if Katherine lets her live. Haley says Klaus promised to protect her, and Klaus is like, yeah, well, as soon as you tell me everything you know about Katerina. Damon goes on over to Klaus's mansion. By this time, Klaus has returned. We ask what Haley knows about Katherine. Klaus tells Damon that he will not allow him near Haley, but he does reveal that the vampire that he bit earlier that day, who will by now be dying of werewolf venom, probably knows where Katherine is. So Damon goes off to find this doomed vampire. Eventually, he's joined by Rebecca, who he agrees to work with because she has brought a vial of Klaus's blood, the cure for werewolf venom. On the Klaus end of things, he wines and dines Haley as part of his own interrogation tactics and asks her where Katerina is. And Haley asks, do you seriously think I know? And I'm like, well, Haley, I seriously didn't think you even knew who she was. Yeah. And apparently you guys have been talking.
I'm not sure how to navigate the situation at all, Haley. Like, I couldn't tell you what I know because I don't know what's happening.
It's this scene which illuminates things a bit further. Because Klaus asks what Katherine promised Haley in exchange for tipping her off about their quest for the cure. And Haley says Katherine found her in New Orleans, which is where she would have been after she'd already screwed over Tyler.
Right.
She was looking for her birth parents, I guess their grave, which is the only info that Shane gave her. And Katherine found her and was like, hey, I can help you on this quest for your blood family. During this conversation, Haley brings up Tyler, whom wildly she still refers to as a friend. Klaus tells Haley that if Tyler has even half of her resolve, he might actually survive the year. Haley then says it takes more than resolve. It takes allies and a network of people willing to do anything for you, including chasing down loose ends to their death. And that is how Katherine has managed to elude him for so long. Which... this comes as a surprise to me. From what we have seen out of the only two friends Katherine ever really had, she screwed over one, big time, because it suited her needs. That's Pearl. And the other was only her friend in like the 21st century. That's Isabel. So I have a hard time believing that Katherine, whom anyone aware of the originals would know is marked for death, would have somehow acquired centuries worth of contacts and allies who are fiercely loyal to her and willing to run errands and do dirty work, especially when there's all this evidence that associating yourself with Katherine gets you killed or doomed to an eternity on the run.
Is the implication loyalty here?
It's at the very least a willingness to work with her and put yourself in harm's way, which I'm like, did you need to?
I just assumed she was incurring debts. As you say, the same way she does with a number of people we've seen who do her bidding.
I'm like, what would happen if you just told her no?
I don't know, she kills you?
If you just said, I don't feel like helping you.
She kills you then, I guess.
Or run away from her. I mean, Catherine is like, if you're going to threaten me as Katherine Pierce, the only thing I need to do to get rid of you is run to Klaus and say, hey, Klaus, I've got a through line to Katherine Pierce. Do you want to come kill her?
Yes. Well, that's assuming you know Klaus. So.
I mean, if you can contact him. There are ways of getting through to him, apparently. Rose and Trevor managed to get through to Elijah, who she was equally scared
they're
of.
already in the know, right? They already are like connected to all that bullshit. If you're like someone on the periphery, because this is like, you know, like how in a medieval kingdom, for example, you get the royal family and you get the courtiers and you get the like soldiers and guards who are working class but are tangentially connected to like the bourgeoisie.
Yeah.
And then you get the people who are like on an extraneous farm at the far end of the kingdom, who will probably never meet anyone of like such high importance in their life and never be affected by their antics beyond like very broad scale things. Like there are vampires and like maybe witches, although witches would be harder to believe because they've got a whole network going, well, before the other side goes down, where it's like you could just exist as a supernatural creature who's just like living your life and doesn't know about the central royal like events that are happening. You don't know who the MFG are. You don't know who Klaus is. You've never met the man. Even though you're in the Sire line by virtue of being a vampire, you don't know shit about shit because you got turned one day on like a truck stop corner and then now you're just a vampire and you've got to live, you know? So
That's true. Stefan and Damon definitely had no idea who the originals were.
Until 150 years into their life, you know? So it's like, it's very possible Catherine just found like people who had some connection to the supernatural, but were not aware of the larger context of things that are going on in this world and was like, and now you work for me because I'm hot and cool and you have nothing going on in your life. Or because I'm threatening your family, or because I did something for you and now you owe me and I'm here to collect. Like, this is kind of how she operates. I would believe that rather than like any sense of loyalty. I would believe it's like debts incurred, manipulations, and recruitments, for lack of a better phrase. Yeah, I guess the word allies is the only thing that throws me off about that.
Yeah, because it's like allies and then was like willing to do anything for you. And I'm like, are they willing? Are they not under duress? I mean, she finds Mason and tricks him into triggering his curse. But then later on, we meet Jules's pack, who seem to have already known Mason when he started dating Catherine. So I'm like, did he just hang around werewolves when he was untriggered, or did she later on lead him to those werewolves and then introduce herself at some point after that to the packs? But they were like, oh,
yeah.
your vampire girlfriend.
Because Mason, like, he knew about the family curse, but nobody had, like, brought him into it, right?
Yeah, I guess she could just be finding noobs. I just, considering how supposedly infamous she is among vampires. Even Lexi, who's never met her, knows her because she knows Stefan. And it's like, oh, Katherine Pierce, the myth, the legend. Oh, Katerina Petrova.
But that's because Lexi knows Stefan. How many vampires in this world don't know Stefan or Damon or Lexi, right? Once you get beyond the network, some people are on the far ends of this network who do not matter.
Hey, Damon knows a lot of people. Damon knows the vampire who's dying in this episode of The Werewolf Bite.
That's crazy,
as we'll later
right?
learn.
That's the thing I was gonna say. So like, that's insane that it just happens to be this vampire who was important to you 30 years ago. Okay, how did you not know werewolves existed? This is all silly.
I find it funny that Catherine's reputation has not caught up with her at this point, to the point where other vampires, at least, who, you know, would have had like long lifetimes to learn this information, would be like,
I'm sure it
stay
has.
clear of her.
I'm sure it has with older vampires. I think she'd have a lot of issues trying to recruit like a 300-year-old vampire now, you know?
Yeah.
But over time, back when they were 100-year-old vampires, possibly, and then she ditched them or killed them. So
just the list of people she's screwed over is so
yeah.
The list of main characters she's screwed over is just so long. It's like Rose, Trevor, Anna, Pearl, the Tomb Vampires, Emily Bennett, Mason, Isabel, and John, even John. And now here she is apparently trying to have Haley assassinated just for working with her.
Okay. Why did Haley believe that Catherine would know about her blood type? Well, I guess she did, right?
I think Catherine showed up, found Haley, somehow knew what she was up to, and was like, hey, I'll help you if you help me find out more about what the Mystic Falls gang is up to this season. It's framed as though Haley didn't, or at least I interpreted it as Haley didn't tell her about the cure. She already knew about the cure and then went to Haley to get more deets because she knew Haley had been in town.
Okay,
in
and that's
era.
better for me because I feel like I was going to say I don't think Haley was necessary for Katherine to get all this information. She's done this before. And also it's like, no, now I'm trying to think about what does Katherine tell her that was key?
What does Katherine tell Haley?
Yes, that like what did Haley get out of that interaction? What did she tell her about her family that was like...
I don't think we ever find out because as far as we know, Shane had already told her where her parents were buried.
Then when she bangs Klaus is the one to see a birthmark on her back and is like the crescent wolves. And it's like, okay, I guess. Like all that stuff. None of that's Katherine. Then she goes to New Orleans and it's the Devereaux and the Devereaux tell her some shit. But where's Katherine in all of that?
I don't know. I kind of feel like they just wanted to tie Katherine to what will eventually be the backdoor pilot of the originals.
Right. Which is like, even in that, with that little voiceover when she tells Klaus whatever, is like, she tells him information she's just learned post all of this. So, I don't know. Very weird.
Oh yeah, it is information that's post all of this because it's in this episode that the baby is conceived.
The baby is conceived this episode.
Wild, very foggy, nebulous writing here.
Season 4, man. Weird. It's no season 5, but it's like, damn, guys, what's going on?
Anyway, Klaus is like, Haley, tell me the names of Katerina's special little helpers. And Haley's like, I'll tell you one or two. I can't remember if that directly leads anywhere because I don't think Klaus personally goes to look for anyone Katherine knows. So this entire scene is just so that Haley and Klaus can smash.
So they can bang. And I don't like it. I always felt like, I remember it happening and being like, this pairing doesn't work. Klaus having sex with somebody doesn't work.
Completely random.
Right. It never works beyond this. Some people will argue, I mean, not to get into the originals. I had a friend when the originals was happening who was like defiant. Like Klaus and Haley were like a ship. And I'm like, girl, I don't know what you're looking at. I've never seen two people who are like simply not compatible.
Even Elijah says in the originals, when it becomes clear that he's falling for Haley, he says something along the lines of, I am deliberately keeping myself from a woman that you have made it clear you couldn't be less interested in out of respect for this family unit that you are now building.
Right. Like, I could be in there, but because my honor or whatever, I'm trying to make sure your nuclear family unit stays together, you bastard, and you don't even care. Crazy. It was truly, this scene, this moment is just for the backdoor pilot, and it's always been so odd to me, but whatever.
I just wanted to go through it because Haley's talking about her supposed connection to Katherine.
And as it turns out, none of that matters.
Katherine has a network of people that she's been working with.
That's fine. I would have assumed. I didn't need this to be like textualized by Haley Marshall.
I mean, I would have assumed Katherine, who worked so hard to fake her death in a way that the supernatural community would learn about it in 1864, would not be going around building a network of people who know who she is and that she's alive.
Maybe she was calling herself something else.
Okay, I'm just like, Katherine, you have people who know you and have known you for decades? Wild.
Who know me as like Dolores Saint Kinsey or whatever, and wouldn't know my
her
face.
As Kathy.
Yeah, they know her as
Mason's
Kathy
vampire
Johnson. So that's what they say when you change your name to hide your identity. It needs to be somewhat like your old name so that you'll actually respond to it when people call you.
Oh,
but you know,
Cat Peters.
Cat Peters. Cat Stevens. Anyway.
Elsewhere in the episode, No Humanity Elena has been getting up to all sorts of trouble. She plays Stefan and Caroline for fools and tricks them into letting her into a cheerleading meet so that she can feed on vervain-free high schoolers from out of town. She completely ignores Damon's order not to eat people since she's now free of the Sire bond.
The one good thing that comes from this era.
When Stefan tranks her with vervain and takes her to Chez Salvatore for some reprimanding, she brushes him off and tries to distract him by nonchalantly stripping in front of him. At which point, Stefan is like, you know, using your sexuality to manipulate people is a very Katherine Pierce move of you to pull. Elena then scoffs and says she's not like Katherine. And I'm like, oh, you're still very proud of not being like Katherine?
Gotta be.
Except this time, she frames it in a way which I really liked because my instinct in this era would be like, okay, Elena's no humanity. Elena writes right now. She's a vampire and she's cold as hell. She's basically Katherine Pierce. But nope, she points out a striking difference, at least in her mind, between the two of them. Because Katherine's motivation has always been fear and a desperate desire to survive. So Elena tells Stefan that Katherine has been running from Klaus for so long that she's scared of her own shadow. Ooh. While she, Elena, is not afraid of anything due to her current nigh emotionless state. Fair. So I was like, oh, damn.
All right.
Dragging her and she's not even here.
Way to have one up on her, I guess. Damn, cheerleader Elena,
She's
man.
like, Cap, don't compare me to that coward.
No.
In episode 17, Because the Night, Damon takes Elena to New York City for some no humanity shenanigans. No!
I'm sorry, please go on.
Gosh. He takes her for some no humanity shenanigans to the Big Apple, but he's also there to secretly find information on Katherine. The vampire that Katherine sent off to Haley in the previous episode, who was bitten by Klaus and ultimately killed by Damon, was a man named Will, who Damon knows because Will used to make fake identities for people and worked out of New York City. And Damon used to murder innocent humans for him so that he could steal their IDs and give them to Will. Damon now suspects that Will probably had Katherine as a client at some point, and he later on surmises that he was unknowingly helping Katherine stay in hiding because Will had a repeat customer who kept wanting 5'7" brunette white girls to be murdered by Damon.
Problem solved. She was doing identity fraud the whole time.
So Damon eventually leaves Elena with Rebecca, who has joined them, to party, and goes off to find Will's office. He's searching through Will's files because he's like, oh, he'll probably have a file on Katherine. However, they're organized by birth dates, and I can't for the life of me remember when Katherine's birthday is.
That's embarrassing.
He's on the phone with Stefan at this point, who, without missing a beat,
he knows.
Is like 5th of June, 1473.
God! Always outshining you. Aren't you embarrassed?
I mean, Damon jokes, he says to Stefan, and that is why you are the better boyfriend.
Oh, God.
And I'm like, oh, really?
Damon's
out of Damon's
this
own
season
mouth?
especially, that pisses me off. Oh, I'll swing on a mouth. That pisses me off.
But this is where one of my own corrections was baked into the notes, because now we know Katherine's exact year of birth, 1473, which means she was actually 18 or 19 when she became a vampire in 1492. So she must have been about 17 when she had her baby in 1490.
So I was right initially, as it turns out. Because I said she was 17 when she got pregnant. No, like as if I knew that concretely. I will never get haughty about remembering something correctly, let me tell you.
I swear they had referred to Katherine as being physically 17 before in this series. So the revelation that she's apparently actually 19, I'm like, okay.
I don't remember them saying she was physically 17, but again, I would never trust my own memory on stuff like that.
It might have just been a lie on the wiki then that maybe I read at some point.
Well, there's your mistake.
We know these things are often wrong. I don't know.
It's a mistake. Someone went, well, she's played by the same actress and she's playing a 17-year-old character. So that means Katherine must also be... It's like, no, please.
That's highly likely.
Some journalistic practice back into this shit. I beg you. Facts.
Damon finds a list of addresses that are linked to Katherine. He's like, cool, got this. Now I know where to start looking for where she might be. By the end of the episode, Elena and Rebecca have actually stolen the lead that Damon acquired and given him the slip. And the pair of them go off to find Katherine and the Cure on their own. Let's go. Finally, American Gothic, episode 18.
One of my favorite episodes. Of the whole show. Ooh. Certainly the best episode of the season.
Elena and Rebecca have been bouncing from town to town on the list of Katherine's previous known addresses. Elena grows weary of road tripping and decides to stop for a snack. However, the woman she chooses to try and feed off of recognizes her face and mistakenly addresses her as Katherine. She reveals to Elena that she knows Katherine and all of the people in this town are under Katherine's compulsion.
Brilliant.
However, when Rebecca tries to question the woman, we see that she's been compelled to completely forget Katherine's existence if anyone other than Katherine speaks to her. It is a brilliant.
She's so... Do you see what I'm saying? I believe that she somehow, with identity fraud, with compulsion, through carefully selecting people who are the least likely to know who she is, she built that network. Because look at this nonsense. A whole town? She took over a whole town successfully.
I can imagine her painstakingly compelling each and every resident of this town. It must have taken forever.
Ages.
To do that.
And she said, I'm putting in the work.
However, I will say, Katherine, girl, you are fully aware that there's someone in this world, in this very country, who has the same face as you. So the fact that you didn't make sure that your compelled victims would have a way of verifying that they were speaking to you.
Especially when you just killed her brother and she's hot on your trail.
Before divulging your secrets, I'm like, bit of a slip there, Katherine. Your crown is slipping.
Your crown is slipping. To be fair, that's an underestimation of Elena specifically, who she hasn't seen in years and has always been underwhelmed by. So she hasn't seen the growth.
To Katherine's credit, the compulsion does not permit the woman to know any particulars about Katherine's whereabouts when Elena asks, in the guise of Katherine. So I guess she did have that base covered.
There you go.
She's like, she doesn't know how long Katherine's been here, what she's up to, where she lives. And I'm like, okay. But later on, Elena and Rebecca do manage to find Katherine herself. They separate for a few seconds. So while Elena is alone, Katherine gets the jump on her. And Katherine admits to being impressed that Elena managed to find her. But then she's like, okay, I'm going to kill you now.
Of course. You
like,
know too much.
It's a beautiful day to die. Then Rebecca vamp speeds up to them and easily overpowers Katherine. And she's like, you're right, Katherine. You've chosen a lovely place to die. It's one of my fave scenes because despite the formidable force that Elena has become since turning into a vampire and the threat that she now is without her humanity, Katherine is 500 years her senior and far outclasses her.
And then
but
Rebecca
is 500 years older than Katherine and is a virtually unkillable original. So she far outclasses her. And it's like, ooh. Now Rebecca is acting as Elena's muscle and Elena is finally in a position to like overpower and torment Katherine for a change. It's beautiful.
This whole dynamic is so good. I especially love it from, it's the Katherine finally getting put in her place part of the dynamic, which is always, especially given what she's been doing these last couple of episodes, it's like, finally somebody to grab you by your behind and sit you down in a chair where you can't escape. But also, Elena and Rebecca as a pair is just like,
yes, it's
because their
wonderful.
whole thing in season 3, they've always had a connection, and then because one, Rebecca's an insane original and her and her family came to ruin this girl's life, but also Elena was in her era of time to backstab some people, literally and figuratively.
Literally.
So this is the first opportunity they get to be like pal around again, and it's on like the other end of the spectrum, not Elena pulling Rebecca to the side of humanity, but Rebecca pulling Elena. Well, not pulling Elena got there on her own.
Yeah.
But they're on the side of like, devil may care, we're vampires and we're embracing it. We're living life. We're flipping our hair with the sunroof down. We're bitches having fun.
I like that Rebecca, who, much like the fake Katherine vision in the Hunter's Quest episode, she's often been the voice of like dragging Elena as a character. Like, like the writers were reading through Tumblr threads. I like that Rebecca now is one of the biggest fans of No Humanity Elena, at least at first.
Because like, finally you've got that judgy little face off your face, and now we can actually have fun.
And Elena, who, humanity or no, doesn't particularly like Rebecca now, but is like, hey, if this original wants the cure so badly, I'm gonna help her get it because I don't want Stefan and Damon to make me take it.
You know?
So I will string her along for this journey. She's still plotting and scheming. She's using Rebecca very much in this era. Rebecca and Elena take Katherine to a diner to interrogate her about what she's done with the cure. Katherine is surprised that Elena doesn't mention Jeremy's death, which Katherine caused. Elena is nonchalant, and then Katherine realizes that her sweet little doppelganger is in her No Humanity era.
Oh, baby's first humanity switch flip.
She's kind of amused by this, and she sneers that it's so sad for the Salvatores as their special little snowflake of human frailty is gone.
Yeah. Which,
her words.
There's a thread there to pull when it comes to these vampires and their human girlfriends, and when they become vampires and they're like, oh no.
And I'm like, yeah, of course Katherine would zero in on that, because in her mind, she's probably always wondered, what is it about this basic girl who looks just like me that has Stefan so enamored that helped Damon get over me. Me! Katherine! How? It must be because she's the sweet little human plaything that they love to baby. So,
But also, it pulls back to the thread of like Trevor and Elijah back in the day. Well, Trevor specifically, because when Katherine turned herself, Trevor was like, "You turned yourself into a vampire. And we were gonna run together." And it's like, what has changed about the plan for us to run away together? Now that I'm a vampire, it doesn't work for you anymore? What's that about? Like, that's the thread I'm pulling.
I guess in Elena's case, because she's talking about the lack of humanity, she's like, "Oh, they always lorded your compassion and your love over me as the defining trait that separates us, and now you've got none of that. So I guess you're not so special after all, Elena."
True.
Rebecca and Katherine trade some barbs in this scene as well. Rebecca mentions that while she did know Katherine back in her human Katerina days, she didn't expect Katherine to remember her because she was supposedly too busy wedging herself between Elijah and Klaus. And I'm like, oh, okay, some bitterness there. Some stuff that was discussed briefly in season 2.
Yeah, she's like, I was actually in that scene from episode 19 of season 2, but because Katherine wasn't looking at me at any point, the camera wouldn't pan over. So
Elena accuses Katherine of wanting the cure to kill Klaus, but Katherine then claims that no, actually she does want to use it to just make a deal for her freedom, and assures them she has no intention of personally getting anywhere near Klaus.
right, that's the only trick of it. It's like, how do you actually get it down his throat?
Because she's like, yeah, I mean, there's vampires in this world. We've seen Elena hold Cole down long enough for Jeremy to stake him, but
He was already covered in vervain, though. It's like, maybe if you can pull that off, if you can get the municipal water supply on your side, maybe.
I mean, Katherine is closer in strength to Klaus than Elena is to Cole, I assume.
True.
But
yeah,
Katherine
it's like she's
would
not
never take
stupid
that
enough
risk.
to try it. And maybe that's the mistake, Katherine. Maybe you need to start making bolder choices. Maybe you need the delusions of a 17-year-old protagonist in a supernatural show. Maybe that's what you need.
So Elena wonders aloud when exactly Katherine plans to screw them over and get someone killed.
A fair question.
Katherine is like, me? Girl, I have no reason to screw you over, which Rebecca literally laughs at. Rebecca's like, ha! Like none of us have heard this line from you before, Katherine. Yeah, you're on our side. We want the same thing. There's no reason for you to hurt us. Then Katherine is like, I'm not the girl you think I am. People change. Which, Katherine, that is a
You've
wild thing
just
to say.
come back and
Since-
murder the
Exactly.
main character and then dip.
Compared to where we left you in season 3.
You worsened, Katherine.
You are as conniving and as wicked as ever. I don't know what you mean. Rebecca snatches Katherine's phone, and she and Elena discover an appointment in some notes for a meeting with someone saved as EM. It was immediately obvious to me the first time that I watched this
It
show.
was not immediately obvious to me because I'm dumb as
Really?
hell. Yeah.
I immediately knew who it was.
I wasn't
And
thinking
For
about
some
it.
reason, neither Rebecca nor Elena clock it, even though Rebecca has just mentioned this person.
Here's what it is. All the textual discussion about their time in the 1500s with Katherine happened in season 2, and I started in season 3. Or rather, the very last episode of season 2. So I'm sure they reference at some point in season 3. And then, as you say, Rebecca mentions it. I didn't have the prior knowledge of like how that all went down.
Okay.
I knew they were vaguely connected to Katherine, but in season 3, it's the Tatya that's important of it, because we're talking about how the originals came to be.
It might also be because Elena reads the contact as M rather than EM. She's like, who's M?
Oh, there's no dots. Yes, it's like
Yeah,
Emma or
she sounds
Emily or
it out,
something.
EM, yeah. Katherine doesn't divulge who it is, but Elena decides to go meet this person in Katherine's place. And I love this, because it's the first time that Elena intentionally decides to impersonate Katherine for a change.
Yeah.
And now that she's a vampire, she can do it!
Oh, how the turns have tabled. The foot's on the other shoe.
So Elena dips over to the bathroom to redo her makeup in the darker, more mature Katherine style. When she comes back, Rebecca jokes that it isn't quite slutty enough.
gotta slut it
and
up a
suggests
bit, babe.
more eyeliner.
Fun. So much fun.
As much as I don't like Rebecca as a person on TVD, and
Interesting.
No Humanity Elena is a terror, because Rebecca, she's such an antagonist that even in that role, very quickly in season 3, she just becomes this easily manipulated, easily
That's the
strung
bit I don't
along.
like. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the thing I don't like of the story. I don't dislike it of Rebecca. I have sympathy for Rebecca because she gets relegated by the story. So I'm always looking for moments where it's like, where does Rebecca shine? because she doesn't get a lot of chance. She's overshadowed by her brothers.
I guess at this point of the story, I still largely just saw her as this antagonist who can never decide how much she hates or doesn't hate particular members of the Mystic Falls gang. And I was like, I'm not your biggest fan, and no humanity, Elena is a terror, but I love watching them gang up and bully Katherine like some mean high school girl.
That's what it is. This energy of like the women get together and we're all monsters. It's like Grindhouse Mean Girls, you know. It's like,
and Katherine just has to sit there and take it because she doesn't stand a chance against Rebecca.
It's the social paradigm of like, it's having to sit there and have Regina George be mean to you because she's of a higher social class to you, but it's codified in that Rebecca's 500 years older than you and will beat your ass.
So Elena suggests that Katherine give her clothes as well to complete the disguise. Katherine flat out refuses. So Elena's like, okay, fine, your daylight bracelet to complete the look. Katherine's like, well, I can't do that because it's daytime, even though they're inside at the moment, and I don't think it would matter. But she also reminds Elena that vampires can't use each other's lapis lazuli jewelry. So I guess that suggests Elena was gonna like swap out her ring.
I guess she was presuming that she would be trapped in the place then if she gives away her daylight jewelry. She's like, it's daytime. If you take it, then I can't go anywhere. I'll just be stuck in this bathroom, frankly, because the light's coming in through the window in the diner. She do what Spike does. Just cover yourself in a blanket and then everything's fine, right? That's normal
so
and
stupid.
You can be out at midday as long as you got a little dirty, ratty blanket that most likely has holes in it, because you will not get a new one.
Elena ultimately insists on Katherine's jacket and earrings, though, and Katherine has no choice but to comply because Rebecca threatens her. Katherine does warn Elena that she'll never pass for her. Elena then practices impersonating Katherine's voice. She's like, you'll never pass for me. And then Elena's like, you'll never pass for me. Then Rebecca, so snide, she's like, throatier, more mannish. Rebecca being so petty.
It's so funny because Katherine does have a little bit of a huskier, raspy voice, right?
She does.
Come on,
but the fact that Rebecca chose to call it more mannish.
They should not be tearing each other down as women. The men do that enough. God.
Eventually, after Elena practices some lines, Rebecca says that Elena is speaking with the perfect level of contempt and hidden insecurity to sound just like Katherine. Which, hey, Bex, let's not get started on insecurities, because if we're being honest, Katherine is a lot of things, but she is far less insecure than Rebecca has ever been.
Yeah.
Let's not go there.
There is actually an inverse graph happening with these three characters pertaining to age and insecurity.
It's true.
Let's be real.
Lastly, Elena takes Katherine's shoes and goes off to meet M, which fair. Katherine is always in more dramatic heels than Elena wears, even in Elena's No Humanity
Elena
era.
wears flats. Elena wears heels at events only. She's not a heel kind of girl.
Katherine is like, I've been on the run from Klaus for 500 years, and for several of those centuries, I was wearing heels. I was running in heels. When Rebecca is alone with Katherine, she admits that she has always been somewhat envious of the legend that is Katherine Pierce. Which, there you go, my point exactly. She speaks on the way that Katherine could wrap men around her little finger. Mm-hmm.
In a way that Rebecca struggles.
Ooh, Rebecca always being wrapped around said fingers. Mm-hmm. She notes that both Salvatore brothers fell head over heels for Katherine. Elijah betrayed Klaus for her, proving that to some degree Elijah did actually allow Katerina to escape in 1492. Because now it's being said textually that, oh yeah, he betrayed Klaus to save Katherine. So okay.
That's certainly how I'm sure Klaus would frame it. So it may just be she's hearing a secondhand story of this. She's like, what happened? And Klaus is like, your brother betrayed me because it's your brother when he does something you don't like. And it's like, Elijah barely did anything. He just liked Katherine. I don't know though. I'd like to believe Elijah did more.
Maybe because Klaus immediately suspects that Elijah must have said something that set Katherine on the path to finding out she was going to be
Surely
sacrificed.
Based on the previous conversation of the fact that Elijah, has a crush on her. And he's like, excuse me, you care for this regular gal? And then said regular gal disappears. So he's like, oh, it must have been you. How else would my perfect plan be foiled?
Maybe for just a moment he faltered. And then he was like, no, I gotta go find her. And then finding out that Trevor had not only helped her escape, but then pretended to help him look for her. And then sent her off to Rose, who accidentally turned her. Then he was like, oh, okay, now Trevor and Rose need to die.
And it's like,
now
is that stupid. A betrayal? I think that's dramatic.
Well, I mean, this is Klaus who
Yeah.
thought Katherine betrayed him by not dying, so...
Exactly what I'm saying. I'm like, Bex has heard this story from Klaus, and it's like, girl, you've not considered your brother is a drama queen.
Of note. But Rebecca says that, in spite of all of this, Katherine is now alone and friendless all these years later, having to compel a town of people to like her.
Ooh.
But finally, Katherine gets some jabs back in, telling Rebecca that she is foolish for wanting the cure. She says, "Are you really that dumb or just naturally blonde?"
Which is like, she is, so what's your point?
And she tells Rebecca that curing herself of vampirism won't give her the do-over that she desires.
Yeah.
Rebecca taking the cure will only take away her immortality, but everything else Rebecca hates about herself will still be there when she wakes up in the morning. Except that now, without vampire powers, she won't even be able to compel a friend. Which I'm like, damn, okay. So Elena left and you got braver? She was like, you were ganging up on me, but now
She's only got one target. She can focus all her energy on one.
She said, listen, it was the two of you combined, because I can physically hurt Elena, but you're there to be her muscle.
Right.
I couldn't emotionally wound Elena.
she doesn't
But now
care.
she's gone, and I can emotionally wound you.
Right. God, this episode, you get rid of all the boys and the like dialogue and the dynamics and everything becomes so much more interesting. Every single scene that's good in this episode is with these three.
On that note, the Salvatore brothers then show up.
Who cares?
Damon makes fun of Katherine for having already been caught. But meanwhile, Elena learns that EM stands for Elijah Michelson.
King, legend, briefly back in the story.
He shows up to meet her, thinking she's Katherine. She tries to impersonate Katherine, despite being thrown off by Elijah's presence, and then further thrown off when he greets her with a full-on kiss.
Yep. Yep. I was stunned.
Which reveals that he and Katherine are now involved. I was like, Stefan, what have you been up to in the background of this season?
How did you manage that? Didn't know Elijah was still into you. What's been going on?
No one ever really escapes her web, I guess. But Elijah quickly realizes he's speaking to Elena, and he demands to know where Katherine is. Back at the diner, Katherine smugly reveals to the group that Elena has unknowingly gone to meet up with Elijah, who she describes as an original brother with impeccable taste. Stefan tells Katherine that one has to question Elijah's supposed impeccable taste if he's friends with her.
All right. This episode's not about you. Shut up. Get out. Bring my girls back.
But then Katherine brags that, oh no, she and Elijah are more than just friends.
And she's saying this to Stefan, which is like, what?
It disgusts both Damon and Rebecca. They're in the background like, oh,
Okay.
oh no.
Damon, you're a distant fog in the memory. I don't, whatever. It's like, and this is what I'm curious about. Something happens later on that I want to get to pertaining to this, this revelation.
So Stefan realizes that Katherine intends to broker a deal using Elijah. He's gonna go speak to Klaus on her behalf. And he's like, oh, once again, seducing a man to do your dirty work. Some things never change. And Katherine's like, oh, Elijah probably realized who Elena was right away and then killed her.
It's like, girl, always writing fanfics.
You know, I'm like, Elijah wouldn't do that.
She wasn't there for season 3. She doesn't know they're pals.
Oh, yeah.
She leaves.
I mean, to everyone else's credit, they don't believe this. Stefan's just like, okay, I'm gonna go find Elena and Elijah. He leaves Damon and Rebecca to take Katherine to go get the cure where she's hidden it. Stefan calls Elijah, asking where Elena is, and Elijah's like, well, Elena's safety depends on you. Stefan threatens Katherine, and Elijah's like, so unbothered. I'm confident Katherine can handle herself against you Salvatore boys. And Stefan says, oh no, we're working with your sister Rebecca. Did you not know that?
And he's like, oh.
Immediately, Elijah's terrified. He's like, Rebecca despises Katherine and will kill her the moment she ceases to be of use. He was like, oh no, I didn't know that my sister was there.
That changes
now
everything.
That's an issue.
Put me on the phone with her now.
He swears that if anything happens to Katherine, he will take it out on Elena. Once he hangs up the phone, Elena is sitting there. She's perfectly fine. She just drags Elijah for being stupid enough to be pulled back into Katherine's orbit. And Elijah says that he has always shared a connection with Katherine, and that Katherine contacted him once she learned about the cure, and they agreed they could be of mutual use to one another. Not sure what his side of this would have been other than them dating. It's not elaborated on.
Maybe that's what it is.
She scoffs at the mutual part, and she warns Elijah that he is falling for Catherine's trap, just like, as she says, every other one of those idiots. And I'm like, you know what? I love No Humanity Elena because she's honest.
Yes. Every character in this show who is... I say every, there's like 3 characters who start off as very like moral good characters and have to hold on to that sense in the ever-shifting world. The release that they get through like the humanity switch being turned off is always so cathartic and fun. Stefan with his humanity off, hilarious. No F's given, no holds barred. Elena similarly, Caroline similarly. Those 3 finally getting to like cut loose in a way that other characters are given carte blanche to do is so much fun.
Oh, and the way Caroline does it in her very Caroline way. Lovely. Oh, can't wait to get to that. Elijah assures Elena that he knows who he's dealing with and he knows all that Catherine has done. And he also says, Catherine told me that you became a vampire, Elena, so she's honest now. But I can tell that you've turned off your humanity. That much is new. Oh, what's happened to you, sweet girl? Elena's like, yeah, I did this because Catherine killed my brother Jeremy. Oh, did she not tell you that? Did she lie, Elijah? Oh, shocker. Because Elijah's like, okay, I didn't know that. And Elena's like, yeah, I hate to say I told you so, but duh. Yeah. Meanwhile, Damon and Rebecca have been led to this house that Catherine is apparently staying in. Catherine's like, okay, let me go look in my secret bookshelf case where I've hidden. Oh no, the cure's gone. It's gone. Oh my gosh, it was in the safe, but it's not here. And Damon's like, okay, yeah, I'm not falling for that. Where is it? And Catherine's like, no, I swear it was in the safe. Rebecca's like, oh yeah, like Elijah's really your boyfriend and this is really your house. Like, for all we know, this isn't even where you live.
Expect a trick at every juncture. This is good.
We're done with your shit. Damon points out like the style of house and the decor doesn't even look like the kind of Catherine that they all know and love. And Catherine's like, well, maybe you don't know me at all. Ooh. Did it ever occur to you that you have no idea who I really am? Ooh. And Damon's like, did it ever occur to you that you're not that deep?
You're mouthing off a lot to people who are far older than you, David.
Everyone is coming for her wig in this episode.
Catherine, get those tracks, please. Get those edges down, girl. I'm worried for you.
So they're like, okay, where is the cure? Catherine does like this little smirk. Rebecca is like about ready to attack her. And Damon's like, no, don't kill her. Like, we need her alive. He sends Rebecca off to look at a different part of the house. And Damon's like, okay, if I was a paranoid, distrustful sociopath, where would I keep my most prized possession? And Catherine immediately back to her toying self. She's like, this should be fun. Let me sit here and watch you try to figure out how I think, Damon.
Let's see you try to be smart.
And then he was like, look at this fish tank that has no fish in it, but a decorative treasure chest. He sticks his hand into the water and is immediately burned because it's vervain water.
Always so stupid. Why wouldn't it be vervain water?
Catherine vamp speeds at him, shoves his head into the water and holds him there for several seconds and grabs the chest. By then, Rebecca is back and she's like, give it to me or I'll kill you right now. Catherine's like, well, you're gonna kill me anyway, so what's more important to you? Killing me or catching this? And she throws the cure at Rebecca and vamp speeds away. And it's like, what? Catherine gave up the cure? Rebecca immediately takes it. And Damon, who is incapacitated right now, is like, no, Rebecca, don't. Rebecca takes the cure and passes out. Thankfully, it turns out that was not the cure. It was a concentrated shot of vervain. Catherine is still layers upon layers of contingency plans. Never gonna get her. She hid a fake cure in a well-guarded hiding spot, led them to the fake hiding spot, pretended that it was in a different hiding spot, and had now been stolen.
Always. Oh, there's a blooper of that scene where she has to throw the chest and she accidentally.
Oh, that's funny. I do love that. Elsewhere, Elijah and Elena speak about Catherine. He's like, you have no humanity right now, Elena, but I'm sure you'll find your way back to yourself someday. And Elena's like, oh, you mean like Catherine is gonna find her way back? You still think that innocent girl you saved from Klaus ages ago is in there somewhere.
Oh, so they're saying saved. Okay.
Yeah, they seem to be working on the assumption that Elijah did something.
Okay. that seems like a massaging of the story, but I'll accept it. Okay.
Elijah says he's not a fool, and he's like, he knows Catherine has, done awful things, become this awful person in the 500 years since then. But then he says, what kind of a man would I be if I didn't try to find my Katerina beneath this Catherine facade? And I really like that that's how he sees it. I don't think it's true, but I think it's very sweet that that's how he sees Katherine as this fake identity
The
she's
shell.
put on to protect herself. And deep down, there's still the sweet little Katerina running scared, who's an innocent soul. And I'm like, oh, Elijah,
I
no.
mean, listen, on a certain level, because just earlier, I mean, Damon joke aside, because I don't give a shit what Damon thinks, but when she says, bold of you to assume you know what taste I would have or who I even am, and he's like, you think you're that deep? And it's like, well, kind of, yes. She's lived 500 years. She's been so many people. She's lived so many lives on the run that it's like, maybe it's true. Maybe she doesn't know. On a real level, she would never show anybody. And that's the curiosity I have about this connection with Elijah now, is that, like, if you had to stop and really reckon with, as Katherine, like, what is going on internally in my identity, it's like, maybe there's a version of that is the truth. That you had to keep on piling layer on layer on layer, and then you became this person. And, like, you are this person now. You've done all these horrible things, and you live like this. But it's like, how much of that over the course of, it certainly at the beginning, was a way to survive. And that has then, like, parabolically grown.
It's the fact that Elijah calls it a facade. I'm like, no, this is not a costume she's putting on. This is who she is now. It might not be who she used to be, but she has very much become the Katherine Pierce. No regrets. Better you die than I. I sold out the tomb vampires without blinking.
Wow. He's
like,
a romantic,
she's not
I
ashamed.
suppose.
And I'm just like, I would have maybe believed Elijah's little fan theory in season 2 and even 3 where we last saw her. But from this season onwards, she just gets more and more.
No, listen, story-wise, it just gets worse. I'm trying to look at this in this moment with these interactions. We know she gets worse. There's nothing I can do about that.
In the middle of this conversation, Elijah and Elena are talking more about Elena stuff now. Katherine shows up, snaps Elena's neck, and she's like, sorry, got held up.
Steps right into her place, which is fun.
Elijah shows a bit of concern for Elena. Katherine's like, oh, come on. She could use a nap. It must be exhausting trying to be me. And Elijah's like, no, wait.
Girl.
You killed Jeremy Gilbert. Katherine's like, okay, yes, I killed Jeremy Gilbert. A bombshell I'm sure Elena couldn't wait to drop on you. Ironic, since she supposedly doesn't care about anything right now.
Yeah, Katherine, it's almost as if it was strategic. I get it. It's like, you would appreciate this if you didn't hate her so much.
I love how she's pointing the thing and she's like, I killed Jeremy. But really, Elena is worse for telling my current boyfriend this to make me look bad.
Because that's what it is. It's the projection. You were talking about she's not that insecure. She's a little bit insecure. And that's why she hates Elena so much. Because everyone thinks Elena's so much better than her. And that makes her so mad.
He's like, well, I care. Do you honestly feel nothing for this girl, Elena? A girl fated to live the same life that you have endured. Exactly. And I'm like, Katherine.
Exactly.
The closest thing Katherine ever had to having that kind of compassion, which again was a lie because she was always planning to sell Elena to Klaus in season 2, was when she was like, hey, Elena, do you want some vampire blood so that you can turn and also go on the run? You gotta be prepared to screw everyone over like I did because it's the only way that I've stayed alive now that I've told you my backstory.
Yeah. It's so tragic that they're like doomed to this dynamic because of, I mean, decisions she's made, and then also because of their connection to these boys. It's just like, they're so similar in some ways, but you're always gonna be on opposite ends. There's a tragedy to that.
I mean, Katherine loses all her family in one fell swoop thanks to Klaus. Elena has systematically lost many people over the years, which, I mean, I don't know what's worse, to lose them all at once or to over and over again in these 3 short years.
Right.
Lose your adoptive parents,
the same
then your
people.
aunt and your uncle, who's your biological father, and then I guess to whatever degree she might have cared about Isabel. Isabel also dies. Now she's lost Jeremy as well, which Elijah is like, you've taken away the last of her family, just as yours was taken away from you. And then Katherine is like, well, the difference is I didn't enjoy it. Jeremy was just collateral damage. I was doing what I needed to do to survive, as is my MO.
Intent and impact, girl. What are we doing?
That's when Elijah is like, is that what I am to you? A means of survival. And then Catherine's like, okay, let's switch tactics. And she's like, oh, don't let sweet little Elena get to you. She hates me. She wants you to turn against me and to convince you that I can't be trusted. And I'm like, Katherine, if you think Elena is the reason that people don't trust you, Elijah's like, no, answer the question that I asked. So she's like, no, you are not a means of survival. You looked out for me when I had no one, and you're giving me a second chance now when no one else will. And she says, I love you. And I'm like, I don't
You don't buy
know
that.
if you're telling the truth. I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know back then, and I still don't know, because even Elijah hesitates and he pulls away from her, and she's like, oh, you don't believe me. And he's like, look, I want to.
But how can I?
He describes as his disease. And I'm like, damn, I didn't know Catherine was still such a weakness for you, Elijah. I did not know that.
I was
at this
surprised to
stage.
learn. But then, because we just discussed it recently, you think about that discussion that him and Elena having where he's telling her about their past. What's the thing he says? He says something so poetic.
Oh, she was like, oh, you cared for Catherine. And then he says, it's a common mistake, I'm told.
Yes. The way he says that makes it feel like he's still in that moment. So it's like, yeah, you can't escape the people that, you love. They never truly go away. Unless they do something like absolutely heinous and unforgivable. And it's like, Catherine hasn't done all that much to him.
Not to him necessarily, but I mean...
In general, certainly.
Elijah, unlike Rebecca, cares about people. If you've done nothing to wrong him and you're not a threat to anyone he loves, he doesn't wish ill upon you. So to see her and the people that she's hurt in her rather long life, he's like, yeah, you've done monstrous things, Catherine. And I'm like, well, she did that because she was terrified of your evil brother.
Yeah, there's that to consider. But like this moment with Elena, who he does care about, as we know, that makes sense to me. That kind of like tells.
And I think the Elena of it all does make it worse, because Elijah has now seen that, well, here's Elena, a girl following more or less the same blueprint that you were given, but she's managed to survive without screwing people over and hurting her loved ones and manipulating and lying.
She's in a
and
rough patch
backstabbing.
right now, but I know she's gonna swing right back. So it's like, girl, what's stopping you? And that's like the worst thing you could say to Catherine.
Yep. Because he says he wants to believe that Catherine has changed, but he says, how can he when at every turn she gives him a reason to doubt her? And he says, I don't know you, and I don't know that I ever will. And he tries to leave, and Catherine's like, wait, you gave me your word that you would talk to Klaus. I can't make a deal without you. And then I'm like, oh, that was the worst thing you could have said in this moment, Catherine, because now... nail in the coffin. You've now made it seem like the most important thing in this relationship is getting him to talk to Klaus on your behalf. So he's just like, goodbye, Catherine, and he leaves. Eventually, Catherine goes off to the woman that Elena and Rebecca had found earlier that day, and it's like, surprise, the real cure was with this woman the whole time.
The first person you ran into in the thing. That's like an old trick in story writing where it's like the first person you run into is the killer. So they'll never suspect.
So she takes the cure and goes and finds Elijah later on. He tries to dodge her and she's like, wait. And he's like, what do you want? She says to tell him that he's right, that she has spent so much time running and lying just to survive that she's starting to believe her own lies. Which I guess means in her mind, at least what she's saying now, how she feels now is that, yeah, I never really was this monstrous person. I had to play the role, and after a while, I came to believe that was all I was, but I don't want to be this way anymore. I don't even remember who I was when we first met, but I want to find out. She shows him that she's got the cure, and she says, I can shove this down Klaus's throat and try to kill him, but even if I manage to do it, I'd lose you, and I don't want that to happen. And I'm like, if this is true, amazing growth. But also, Catherine, you've been so convincing before. How do we know this is true? Because even Elijah says, how do I know this isn't another lie? Katherine Pierce deceiving yet another man. And I like that he calls her Katherine Pierce.
And not Katerina.
Not Katerina, which is what he usually calls her. She says, because I meant what I said about my feelings for you, and I'd like to think that you feel something for me too. I need you to trust me. I want you to trust me, just like I'm trusting you. You don't owe me anything. I'm gonna let you decide where we go from here. And she gives him the cure and leaves. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah, she hands it over. The one thing that gave her any power or leverage, and she handed it over willingly to somebody. And that's the bit that makes me go, now hold on. Like you're saying, it's Catherine at the end of the day. There's no way to genuinely know what's real and what isn't. But it's like she says, I'm starting to believe the lie. I'm starting to believe it's the Breaking Bad, right? Where the physics teacher becomes a drug kingpin. And it's like, I was just doing this to do A, B, and C, but then you become that person you were pretending to be. So then that means this thing with Elijah is likely real. But it's like up until halfway through season 3, the realest connection she's had, in her mind at least, is with Stefan. did she finally come to a realization, the thing that she says to Elijah, funny enough, in season 2, that real love is reciprocated, right?
Yeah.
And so she's been hounding after Stefan this whole time. Stefan, who at every opportunity is like, girl, what you did to me, I will never forget. I hate you for real and forever. Stay away from me. Finally, in her moment of growth in season 3, she went, okay, maybe this is a lot and I need to reflect. And she went, who is the person that I did like who actually liked me and I never like coerced or controlled or like screwed over in a way that was like direct and personal? And as it turns out, Elijah is still holding a tiny, tiny torch. So like, here's something I can work with. And then it's like, it might be real? It's fascinating to me. It's like, it would have made a far more interesting Katherine going forward. And again, to touch on a Damon connection that I always am when it comes to Katherine and Damon, it would have made a far more interesting Damon. From that scene in season 2 where Damon is like, will I eat this girl in the middle of the road or will I not? I'm sobbing more than I've ever cried ever on this show because it turns out I don't enjoy vampirism and I've been pretending this whole time and I don't know what's true and what isn't. That is fully dropped, right? For Damon. Damon never goes back to that moment and it's never addressed and it never reaches a depth of character that he did in that one episode, in that one scene. This story will continuously drop genuine, like, depth of character moments for these characters.
They have these gems that they cast aside
in favor of the more superficially exciting characters, you know?
Yeah. And even going forward, this revelation about how Katherine now feels about Elijah, it also doesn't really go anywhere, and we don't really get a chance to see if it was genuine or yet another ploy,
right? Because it's like, why wouldn't we? And maybe they were hoping to explore that in the spin-off, but I don't know how they would be doing that when Nina Dobrev would still be in the Vampire Diaries for another 2 years. So I don't know what the plan was. Because right after this episode, well, not right after, 2 episodes after this, is the backdoor pilot to the originals, and Elijah's gone.
Yeah.
So
he leaves and I think bids her farewell.
Yeah.
As he does it.
I don't know. It's curious.
Because yeah, in the next episode, Katherine doesn't appear. The originals just discuss her, and Elijah's like, yeah, I would like her to be pardoned. And Klaus is like, lol, not doing that. I'll kill her the moment I find her.
Which is like, okay.
And then at the end, we get the voiceover message, the voiceover letter from...
Hey, you know, it's more important than killing me, your little baby that apparently exists now that's in New Orleans, and the witches who are conspiring against you. Which is like, no?
She claims that it's because she has now learned that Elijah has not given Klaus the cure. And she's like, so I guess that means you've refused me my freedom. She says, shame on you both.
Which is like, at least he tried, girl, damn.
And that's when she's like, it's been a fun 5 centuries, Klaus, but I've worn down too many good heels running from you. Which I love. And she signs it off, love and hate, Katerina.
Love that. Honestly, considering where the show goes, the best way they could have ended the, like, Katherine-Klaus connection.
Yep.
Because beyond this point, they will never interact again.
So, Katherine doesn't appear in the next episode. It's dealing with the originals, the backdoor pilot. In She's Come Undone, episode 21, she randomly meets up with Bonnie, who has summoned her. She's like, whoa, what's going on here, Bonnie? I'm surprised that you're out here lying and scheming to your friends, not telling them you're meeting up with me. And Bonnie's like, well, that has nothing to do with any of them. This is about you and me. We have things to discuss. So Bonnie's like, listen, all the other characters seem to have forgotten this, but I still know that you have Silas's tombstone, which you left the island with. I'd like you to give it to me. Catherine's like, what makes you think that I even have it? And she's like, you took it from the island and you would never leave something behind, even if you didn't fully understand its intrinsic value. You always have your backups, your plans, your contingencies.
As long as somebody else wants it, it's leverage.
Exactly. So Catherine's like, oh, okay, so you're working for Silas now, running errands for the big bad immortal. Bonnie's like, no, I am delaying Silas with false promises and sweet nothings. He wants to take the cure and die after dropping the veil to the other side, and I said I would help him, but I've been buying time by saying, oh, I first need the lunar cycle to allow for that. Katherine is naturally curious about what Bonnie's up to, but Bonnie's like, Silas is psychic and can read minds and pretend to be other people with mental illusions, so the less that you know, the better. And Katherine says, okay, how do I know you're not Silas? And Bonnie's like, well, you don't, but I'm not. Because he can't get inside my head, I know you're also not him. This will later on prove to not be true in terms of Bonnie's immunity.
Which
but
is so unfortunate.
It's unfortunate.
God, Silas is so menacing before he becomes real.
Before he becomes Paul Wesley.
Right. Right.
He just becomes like
fun.
this campy cartoon villain.
Exactly.
Who is also fun.
He's
but
dancing around. He's having a drink. But it's like, this Silas is a horror villain.
Katherine, of course, is like, okay, cool. What's in it for me? And then Bonnie's like, just bring it to me and I'll make it worth your while. Elsewhere, Elena is being tortured by the Salvatores. I think we've discussed it in the later episode. They're torturing her with like on-offing the sunlight while she hasn't got her daylight ring. Then eventually she allows the repeated like flames that are erupting on her to burn enough of the rope that she's tied down with so that she can rip through it, runs towards the window, rips the curtains off so that she can burst into flames. And then Stefan and Damon obviously save her and put out the fire. And she's like, well, there we go.
You can't
I'm the
do
girl that you
anything
love.
to me.
You wouldn't do anything to actually hurt me, and you just proved that. So then Stefan and Damon are like, okay, cool. You know what we should do? Let's bring in somebody who will affect her emotions. Somebody who will really hurt her physically and emotionally. Katherine.
It makes so much sense. It is crazy to bring Katherine in as a ringer. It's insane.
But the thing is, they're
desperate.
Katherine is the one who killed Jeremy, the thing that led to this no humanity era in the first place. If anyone's going to trigger a response, it's her.
Yeah.
Also, they're like, Katherine has nothing better to do right now. Elijah ditched her to go be in the spin-off series. Katherine shows up while Elena is still in her cell. She's there to mock Elena as usual. She's like, oh, honey, you look awful. Elena is genuinely stunned to see her. She's like, what the hell are you doing here? And Katherine says, your boyfriend's invited me. They want to know if you still have a heart. Plunges her hand into Elena's chest and wraps it around her actual organ. And she's like, there it is. And she says, now, your bodyguards won't let me kill you, but I can rip your throat out so I don't have to listen to you whine. But then Katherine, always on her own agenda, she's like, satisfy my curiosity. What did you tell Elijah? Because
this is, you see what I'm saying? She cares about it. That insecurity's there. She's like, what are you're bad-mouthing me to the people I like? What's going on?
And it was like, that's why you're here? He dumped you and now you're just looking for a scapegoat? Which I'm like, a little bit. And Katherine says, tell me what you said to turn him against me or I'll feed you your own eyeball. Elena just says, I didn't have to say anything. Look at you. Self-obsessed egomaniac on the run for 5 centuries. What good would you be to anyone? You're the definition of damaged goods. No wonder Elijah left you.
Oh, God.
I'm like, damn, reading her for filth and she doesn't even need Rebecca here to tag in.
So similar. I just...
But Katherine is like, yeah, I've done some pretty horrible things to survive. But unlike you, poor delicate Elena, I don't turn off my humanity. I deal with it. You wouldn't last a week as a real vampire without everyone fawning over you. And then Katherine's like,
come to think of it.
But I'd love to see you try. And she leaves the cell door unlocked and walks away.
Crazy. What else would you expect? You brought in Katherine. She doesn't care. Come on, guys.
Ooh.
She's like, yeah, let her out now that she's not just no humanity. Now she's pissed because you'll try to do this. What kind of damage would she do to further mar the image you have of her in your minds? I'm not going to let her walk around thinking she's Miss Goody Two Shoes. Even now? No. Let's have her do something unforgivable.
She goes upstairs and trades some more bobs with Damon, who's like making fun of the fact that she's been dumped. Then Stefan comes in and is like, yeah, Elena's gone. And Damon's like, what? And Stefan's like, yeah, I'm gonna go look for her, find out what Katherine did. And Katherine's like, oops, did I forget to lock her in?
I just have to, it's tenuous, but Stefan coming in while Damon is occupied with Katherine nonsense to tell him Elena has sprung herself. You have not been on top of things, and I had to come and clock that. During this season is just, that's all I'm saying.
I mean, you don't have to put me on Team Stefan. I'm very much
I don't know, I'm
the treasurer for that
here.
fan club.
Yeah.
But Katherine says, let's just say I've lost interest in Elena's recovery. I'd rather watch her tear through an orphanage. Imagine trying to come back from a spiral like that. Katherine meets back up with Bonnie, and she's like, yeah, I know that the tombstone is not just a hunk of rock. I think you're gonna channel the tombstone, which has the blood of your ancient relative, Ketsuye or whatever.
Like, come on, you
Which
know
Bonnie's like,
her name.
Ketsia.
She knew. She just wanted to be snarky. Shut your damn mouth.
Like I was like, okay, cool. Once again, what's in this for me? And then Bonnie's like, you will get the one thing that you want most in this world. Freedom, survival, never having to run from anyone again. I will ask Ketsia to teach me the spell that she used to make Silas truly immortal, and then I'll give it to you, and you will be invincible, no longer afraid of Klaus or anybody else. Catherine's like, Bonnie Bennett, we have a deal. Elsewhere, at the end of this episode, because Elena now has her humanity back on, she's like, cool, I'm focusing on anger as one does when they come out of a no humanity spiral, and I've decided that I'm gonna get revenge for my brother's murder. I'm gonna kill Catherine.
Yeah.
And that's how that episode ends. Which I'm like, Elena, it's cute that you think that you could kill Catherine.
I mean, she's Daggett Originals. She could do anything. And now she's a vampire.
She's Daggett Elijah, who had his guard down around her. Catherine would never.
She Daggett Elijah. She Daggett Rebecca. She helped kill Cole.
Rebecca, who also had her guard down around her.
Right.
In that moment.
They underestimate her. That's what she uses. I am not going to act like it was impossible.
All right. I'm just like, she doesn't even ask for help. She doesn't say, let's kill Catherine. She's like, no, I'm going to kill Catherine.
I'm going to kill her.
Do it on my own.
Yeah, and unlike Damon, I believe she can do it. So
I don't, and I never did. And neither does Stefan, because in the next episode, The Walking Dead, she's like, okay, I'm training, practicing.
I'm punching cinder blocks.
Stefan's like, I don't know where she is, and even if I did, I wouldn't tell you. He also warns her that, yeah, she's a vampire 500 years older than you. You're not gonna be able to kill her. There's an insane scene later on in the episode where Elena is once again being hindered by Stefan, who's like, yeah, don't go after Catherine. This is a suicide mission. And she's like, why are you protecting her? Are you still in love with her, Stefan?
Yeah. Yeah. Which just shows to go how far off Elena's gone, you know? Because that's
like, Elena, you sound crazy.
She's in withdrawal. She's in withdrawal. You see this all the time with people who are coming off a bender. Start saying some wild shit.
Gosh. On Catherine's side of the story, she's still in cahoots with Bonnie. They're in the woods. Bonnie is trying to do her spell, I think, with the whole expression triangle thing.
Somebody like kind of shows up in the area, and I think Catherine goes to go investigate and see who's trying to disrupt them.
Is this when Bonnie magically links Catherine to her?
Yes, so that she can't get too far away.
Leave.
And Catherine's like, I can't be a bodyguard if I can't like walk around. At least give me some slack on this rope you've got around my soul.
Yes.
Bonnie's like, all right, hold on.
But this is also when Bonnie tells Catherine that she does plan to drop the veil and have everyone on the other side come back. I do like to think that maybe that gave Catherine some pause, because she's like, ooh.
How many enemies have I made that are on the other side?
Have I screwed over?
Yeah.
Who are just waiting there. But of course, I guess she's satisfied with Bonnie telling her that, no, I'm gonna make you immortal, so it's fine. You don't have to worry about that. This will later on prove to be a lie. Bonnie has no intention of letting Catherine become truly immortal. While Catherine is wandering around looking for, oh yes, they go to a second location. They're like in the tunnels.
Yeah, they have to do the 3 points of the expression triangle. So they go to 2 and then they get to the 3rd one, and then that happens. And at the time, we're led to believe it might be Silas because Caroline appears to somebody, but then we see Caroline elsewhere. I think Bonnie finds her, and then it's like, oh shit, so Silas is doing some stuff. But when we get to Catherine thinking, oh, Silas has found her, it's not Silas.
It's Elena. It's Elena who attacks her. Unfortunately, Catherine's tether to Bonnie means that her injuries are also
replicated on Bonnie.
It's
that linking spell.
It's very masquerade. Mm-hmm. Stefan finds out the link is hurting her. That's when he stops Elena from killing Catherine in like the one moment where I guess she does get the upper hand.
Right.
And that's when she's like, why are you protecting her? Are you still in love with her? So, okay, I suppose without the context, Stefan suddenly saving Catherine seems
seems
wild.
Crazy. It's like, God. But it's like, Stefan's whole thing is that like he's trying to protect Elena from, because I think he's saying this is not going to solve your problems. If anything, it's going to make you feel worse after the fact once you're back to yourself. Like, this is not the solution to your post-humanity clarity, you know, post-no humanity clarity.
Oh no!
He's like trying to protect Elena's soul in this moment, metaphorically rather.
Catherine being Catherine is of course flirtatious with Stefan, which doesn't help the situation. She's like, thanks for the save, handsome. And Stefan's like, get out of here before I kill you myself.
Because I've got no such qualms. I'll do it.
She's like, really? I'm your biggest problem right now? Looking at Elena.
But to that point, if Stefan hadn't intervened, Elena would have successfully killed that woman. Because she caught her by surprise, she immediately went for the stab, and she did not hesitate. Sometimes that's all you need.
I guess that's true. I mean, this is the same season in which she manages to kill.
Right. Once you've killed an original, who is Catherine? Okay.
So we go into the grand finale of season 4. Graduation day. The episode is named Graduation. Catherine comes up to Bonnie, who's in her cap and gown, and I think Bonnie is dead at this point.
Yep.
But is
Ghosting
still
around.
moving around as a solid ghost because she's in the expression triangle. Bonnie's like, and here I was hoping the ghost of anyone would have killed you already. And Catherine's like, funny you mentioned death because I'm here to collect that immortality you promised me. Bonnie's like, oh, yeah, Ketsia is the only one who knows the spell and she didn't show up, so too bad you're out of luck. Catherine's like, see, Bonnie, I can't disagree with you. I am out of luck. I've been feeling really out of luck lately, but you know who's been getting all of my luck? My beloved doppelganger, Elena. My shadow self is living a better life than I am, so if I don't get that immortality, I may just have to get rid of her altogether. And I'm like, Catherine, what? When did Elena suddenly become the focus of your ire again? You've kind of not cared about her this season.
This season, when she badmouthed her to Elijah and got rid of her latest opportunity for happiness, and then she started to spiral about how Elena, everybody loves her so much, she thinks she's so good, even though now she's a vampire. Now her humanity's off. Now she's done bad things, but oh, everybody's so happy to have her come back for the brink, but not me. Bitch, I'll kill you.
Bonnie's like, did you just threaten my best friend? I'm in my expression era. I could kill you.
I'm unstable, bitch, and I've got unlimited power. That's a crazy thing to do.
Catherine's like, go ahead, make your move, as a bunch of students are coming out into the hallway, which I guess she's like, Bonnie will never reveal herself to these civilians. And as Bonnie looks away, Catherine vamp speeds out of there. She is gone for most of the episode until right near the end. She ambushes Elena. She shows up at the school. She's like, happy graduation, cupcake. Starts slamming her around. Elena, who has at this point decided to let go of her Catherine vendetta, is also confused as to what Catherine's doing here.
Process, healed, had a quick chat with her dead uncle and brother. Like, she's in a good place now.
She's like, what are you doing? And then Catherine says, would you believe I'm having a bad day? And she says, it started when Bonnie denied me my Silas-like immortality. And Lena says, oh, of course, because Katherine Pierce can't be happy with good old-fashioned vampire caliber immortality. They're fighting this whole scene as they say all this. Catherine is like, I deserved it. I never had a graduation or a prom or, you know, a life. But you did. You have everything. And it's not because you're a good little girl who deserves happiness. It's because you stole mine. And I was like, wait, what? Catherine, what are you saying? I was like, do you mean Stefan? What are you talking about?
It's part of it. That's certainly part of it.
And I'm like, don't be angry at this girl who made better choices than you ultimately and was able to lead a better life of a doomed doppelganger than you ever could.
So that's the thing, right? Because part of it is maybe different choices, but also in discussing it over these last two sessions with Catherine. And listen, we spoke about this in the Elena episode, and I was fighting from Elena's perspective. I don't have to do that today. Today, this is a Catherine episode. Even the circumstances of their birth is different, right? Because Catherine is born in the 15th century, where no girl is doing well, frankly.
Yeah.
She's born presumably poor. I don't think the Petrovas or the Petrovs were doing well. She is exiled at 17. She gives birth out of wedlock, and then she's just like floating. And then she meets ancient vampires and has to go on the run because they want to kill her. Elena, born to two loving parents, rich, southern US, upper middle class, even though like she was adopted into a good family, and only then does the bad stuff start to happen at 17, kind of similar to how it happened for Catherine. But unlike Catherine, Elena has friends.
Yeah.
Elena has people looking out for her. Elena has the love
She's got
of
Jenna.
Right. She's got ancient vampires on her side, rather than trying to sacrifice her for some ritual. Already from the get-go, Elena has such a leg up on her. So even factoring in the choices that they've made and the people they've had to become, Elena was already living a better life than her. A life that she might have had an opportunity to have if things had gone differently. Obviously, it's insane to come to Elena and be like, you stole my life. But it's this existential doppelganger thing that they're playing in, right? That it's like 500 years down the line, you, fruit of my line, fruit of my loins, however many centuries removed, you drew that luck down the family line. You reached back in time and stole from me, you know? Then it's like, you took the man, because we love the same man, but he thought I was a monster and tried to run away from me. But oh, you're so perfect and delicate and demure, you couldn't possibly be a monster like me. It's like, well, goddamn, you know?
Very mindful, very demure.
Exactly. Everybody's tripping over themselves to protect little Miss Elena, while me, I've gotta like graft, and I've gotta work, and I've gotta trick and coerce and indebt people just to stay alive. You barely have to do anything but sit there and cry and be like, oh, the burden of having to have people sacrifice themselves over me. At least you've got people to like sacrifice themselves over you. Girl, I've got nobody. And part of that is on me, sure, but I've had nobody from birth. So, from a certain perspective.
I mean, Catherine, you had Trevor in your corner and you him over. So you've definitely taken some of the cards you've been dealt and burned them. Thrown them away, crumpled them up. It probably does hurt that also Elijah, who clearly the writers have now decided she genuinely still cares about, has always had like a bit of a soft spot for Elena, a deep respect for Elena, in spite of the brief times they've been antagonists.
Even now, in that moment, in that episode American Gothic, where he stops and goes, Catherine, I have to reconsider this whole situation that we're in now, because you killed stupid little Elena Gilbert's stupid little brother. And Catherine's like, why does that matter to me? Why does Elena matter to you? Who's she? I'm the girl you love. How can it still be about her? You know? It's probably frustrating.
I do love that Elena is incredulous. She's like, I stole your happiness? You killed my brother.
True. Absolutely true. That's what it's gonna be at the end of the day.
Which even Catherine is like, I'll admit that was nasty.
At the end of the day, it's like, Catherine, you came to this town with the express purpose of taking this girl and selling her over. Who ruined whose life? Tangibly, materially.
Catherine does say she's clearly decided to kill Elena once and for all in this moment, and she says she has nothing, but she's about to change that. And I'm like, I don't see how killing Elena is going to change that, Catherine.
Yeah.
Stefan will hate you even more, but okay.
She's off the deep end. She's off the deep end, man. There's no getting her back.
In this scene, it's very much like, yeah, Elena, when you almost killed Catherine last episode, luck was on your side because she's wiping the floor with Elena in this scene.
She's aware now.
Kicking her ass.
She caught you by surprise.
Elena's like, kicking someone while they're down, classy till the end, Catherine. And Catherine says, yeah, your end. Elena pulls out the cure that we learned through a well-placed flashback Stefan gave to her before the end of the episode, shoves it in Catherine's mouth, forces her jaw closed so that she bites down on it and ingests it. And Catherine falls on the ground unconscious. And Elena's like, have a nice human life, Catherine. And that is where we end season 4.
So good. It's the best place they could have left her on. Because it's like, okay, if we're not going to grapple with a Catherine who is reckoning with an identity crisis and years of like self-delusion to believe the monster she's become, then we need some poetic justice. Because this can't just be left unchecked.
Yeah.
It's like, goddamn.
I mentioned before, I think in the Damon episode, that Julie and co, their initial plan this season was to have Damon be the one who ended up getting the cure, whether inadvertently or otherwise. But that they changed that when they realized the fans were already...
Which I maintain is silly.
Yeah, George R. R. Martin once said, if you're planning your murder mystery around the butler did it, don't change it to, oh, the chambermaid did it, because someone has already figured that out.
And it's good that people figure it out. That means you wrote a good mystery. Come on.
But they changed that because the fans had already seen where that was going. But I do like who they ended up giving it to, Catherine. It leads to a very interesting season 5 for her.
And it would have been an equally interesting story for Damon, because again, these characters, that's the archetype, the monster who has done all this stuff. And it's like, and what would you have to do when you need to reckon with your humanity, when you are confronted with your humanity against your will? Now what do you do with everything that you've done? That would have been an equally good storyline for Damon. I love the Catherine one. But
Oh, certainly. It's flipped on its head. Elena is still a vampire. She's the one with all the power. Catherine is now this helpless human woman whose chickens are coming home to roost because she's got a lot of enemies.
We spoke about comeuppance in the last session, and I was very adamant never at Klaus's hands. At Elena's hands is the perfect way to end it. That is the person who is the one who's to bring her a comeuppance.
Let's get into Catherine's human era.
Right. Yes, of course.
Episode 1 of season 5. I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Don't lie to me, there's no other.
I believe the first time we see Catherine, she's walking around the street alone at night. She's paranoid, jumpy. Her hair is a mess. There's leaves and twigs. Her clothes look tattered. It's like, damn, Catherine, it's only been 3 months. I know you don't have superpowers anymore, but a shower, a hairbrush, a change of clothes.
Oh, the pitying humanity. It's dissonant. It's so strange to see her brought so low, but also it's like, girl, that's crazy.
And I think Bonnie does say, if Catherine ingesting the only cure on this earth and having to live life as a human isn't justice, I don't know what is.
Mm-hmm. True that.
My immediate thing was, listen, I assumed that those would be the chickens coming home to roost for her in this season. But I was also like, Catherine is still Catherine. She still has the same mind, if not the same powers and resources at her disposal.
Yeah.
How did she allow word of her being cured to spread so quickly? It's been 1 summer, girl. I would have holed myself away. Maybe stay in Mystic Falls.
Yeah, well, that's the thing you should have done, because at least in Mystic
Nobody
Falls,
cares about her in Mystic Falls. It's like, Elena has defeated you. Stefan and Damon hate you, but they're not going to try kill you.
Certainly, but at
Everybody
least
else
if
is
there's
over
an
it.
influx of like vampires and other supernatural creatures to Mystic Falls, make it the Mystic Falls gang's problem and sneak away in the midst of the chaos. Certainly she could do that. But she leaves for some reason. I can more easily buy that news spread. I think we discussed this in the Elena episode where it's like witches have divination, so surely that could have gone through the witch grapevine. People on the other side
It was Lucy Bennett.
Lucy
getting
Bennett
her
from the
revenge.
grave, because of course she's dead at this point, and we don't know.
Wait, is she dead at this point?
Let me
Was
try
she
and
already
remember.
dead?
Let me try and remember.
The St. John Armory thing? When did she go
How?
there and die?
No. She dies just as they're about to do the time jump. It's just pre the 3. No. It's before that. She might be dead at this point, Lucy Bennett.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Lucy, who, like a fool, I was still waiting for her to come back because she promised she would. I didn't know that the writers don't care about me and they care even less about Bonnie.
Well, yeah.
So,
All of us black people, yeah. That's you, me, Bonnie, and Lucy. Nobody gives a shit. But yeah, so I can reasonably assume that word spread. Especially when the veil dropped, right?
yeah, I mean, the veil dropped, but was she not cured after the veil had gone back up?
But people were aware of where she was because the veil dropped. She was in Mystic Falls at that time. The veil was lifted and she got cured, but already a number of people who were there while she was there know she's there now. So it's gonna be much easier to track her moving by human means.
I guess. Would all her enemies have come back to town for the veil's lowering?
No, I don't think all of them, but certainly some of them. It's Mystic Falls. Certainly a lot of the tomb vampires are still there.
Mystic Falls is always described as having more vampires in it than I ever actually see. So I assume some are just on the fringes, just chilling at the grill, not doing anything. It's like when Jules shows up in season 2 and tells Tyler, one of our werewolf powers is being able to detect vampires. And he's like, what? Oh, okay, cool. And she's like, did you think Caroline was the only one? This town is crawling with them. And I'm like, is it? There's currently 4. Well, I mean, 5 if you count Catherine who's stuck in the tomb. But I'm like, it's Stefan, Damon, Caroline, and Rose who will soon be dead anyway. So
I
I'm
think
like,
that's
do you mean
what she
crawling
meant
with
by
them?
crawling. Because it's like, there's certainly more than one. There's a bunch of people here and you haven't noticed? That's crazy. It is crazy also that, like, they never use that to their advantage because they don't like Tyler or involve him in main stuff unless it's like directly pertinent to him. It's like, what a great power to have. You can sniff out vampires.
It seems to be something they immediately forget that he can do going forward. It's usually Bonnie touching people and knowing they're vampires because she's a psychic witch.
Right. But yeah, at the very least, the tomb vampires would have been present in some capacity when the veil was dropped. So it's like, oh, I've marked you. And as soon as I am able, I'm letting everybody know that you're cured. Time for the comeuppance.
And she drags her sorry self all the way to Shea Salvatore. And she's like, hi,
Hey,
it's been a long summer,
guys."
Damon. It was that the Little Women
David,
clip?
because Stefan's not here. almost forgot.
No, Stefan isn't here.
Stefan's drowning in a quarry across town.
Yep.
So
she's not doing good. She downs some bourbon that Damon's poured for her, and she makes a joke about how he's gonna have to cut her off soon, like a bartender, because her tolerance is the joke now. But then she's like, it's so glorious.
yeah, because the thing Alaric says about like being human and feeling feelings and like tasting things again, like it's not the same.
But she's clearly very bitter. Damon, weirdly, is almost sympathetic. Like, he's watching her and he's like, you are the most pathetic I've ever seen you. You're miserable. And she's like, please, I'm Katherine Pierce. I'm a survivor. Damon's like, child, your hair is messed up. Your nails are chipped. You're a sad, miserable human being. And you want me to turn you. So here. And he bites open his wrist and he's like, go on, take a sip. However, Catherine's like, well, I'm not an idiot. I've survived in the supernatural world for 500 years. And that's made me cautious enough to think that I've got the cure in my body right now. Who's to say that I can even become a vampire again? If I take your blood and die, I might just stay dead. And then Damon's like, oh, that would be tragic. Catherine says, deep down in that mushy, gushy, Elena-loving heart, there's a part of you that doesn't want me to die. And I was like, I don't know, Catherine. I think he's over you. If anything, this season loops us back around on a completely different Salvatore train, and it's crazy.
Yeah. I've been bracing myself to talk about that.
Oh, gosh. She tells him that the reason she's here is because someone's been chasing her. Damon's like, okay, then run far away, like preferably away from here. And she's like, no, well, you don't understand. I have enemies everywhere. Now it's getting out that I'm human. I can't protect myself. I'm weak and I'm slow. And she's like, do you have any idea what it's like to run in heels? I have blisters, Damon.
This heels thread they've brought in the middle game is kind of fun.
I love it. And it's the reality. Like, she's lived all this time in a supernatural body. And like she knew when she tricked Rose into turning her, being on the run as a human being
is hard.
Much, much harder.
It's very hard, especially when you're running from supernatural creatures.
Yep. Eventually, we learn that Silas, on his end of things, who has been revealed as Stefan's doppelganger, is looking for Katherine Pierce. He finds her quite easily because of, all the mind reading. And he's like, yeah, I need Katherine. Oh, no, he doesn't tell Damon who he is. He's impersonating Stefan.
He's pretending to be Stefan.
They don't know. Yeah. So I think he even makes a joke that he read Damon's mind to know that Katherine is there. And Damon's like, what? And he's like, I'm kidding. I'm Stefan. No, Katherine called me. He gets a dig and he's like, she called me first before coming to you. Remember? It's always been me first.
And it's like Stefan would never say that.
I'm like, Silas, uncalled for. Why is Damon catching these straight? And he goes and finds Katherine in Damon's bathtub, who is, she's busy shaving her legs. I like to think it's the first time she's had the chance to do that in 3 months.
Imagine. It's the little things, that make you feel home.
Silas comes in pretending to be Stefan. Katherine immediately back into flirting mode. He's like, why are you in my brother's bathtub? And she's like, why aren't you?
Oh my God. You have so many more problems. What are you doing?
And then Silas says, I will say that's a tempting offer. Catherine is like, he flirts. I like Elena-less Stefan. And I'm like, of course you think that's what this is about. Silas tells her that humanity looks better on her than he would have guessed. And Catherine's like, I think you just accidentally gave me a compliment? That's strange. Then the energy starts to shift a bit. And Silas is like, well, you're sitting there all weak and vulnerable. It works. And she's like, okay, this is a bit creepy.
Weird.
What's happening here?
That's what I'm saying. Like, he's trying to impersonate Stefan. He cannot help himself. He's nothing like Stefan.
So yeah, she immediately clocks that something is weird, attacks him with the razor blade.
Nice.
She tries to run away, wraps herself in a robe, and runs to Damon. I think by now Damon's like, okay, so this is Silas again. I don't think he knows that Silas is the doppelganger of Stefan. He probably just thinks, oh, you pretended with your illusion powers.
Yeah.
Gives her over to Jeremy and is like, okay, get her out of here. Don't tell me where you're going, because Silas is a mind reader. And Jeremy whisks her away, as we know. Well, first, I think this is also the scene where then Silas does then explain that the cure is in Katherine. I want to drink it out of her. But later on, driving with Jeremy, this is when Katherine causes a car accident. to get away from him. I think it's because Damon calls Jeremy and he's like, yeah, actually bring Katherine back.
Yeah.
Because Silas wants the cure that's in her. And once he's cured, he's no longer immortal, no longer a threat.
This is perfect for us. Katherine went, oh, okay, I'm on the table again. Time to intervene.
Katherine's like, I can't hear the conversation on the phone, but I can see that something has changed in Jeremy's demeanor. I am not about to do that.
Yep.
She causes the car to crash and leaves Jeremy for dead. And I'm like, this is the second time you've done this to this poor teenager.
You should be grateful he's even helping you after you've done to him. I think she leaves Jeremy for dead after the car crash, and that's the last time we see her. And in the next episode, she's like running through the woods, and she gets to like the other side of the woods and tries to like hitchhike. Someone's like, oh, you look just like Elena. And she's like, I'm prettier than that. And the woman's like, no, I know who you are. You're Katherine Pierce. Pulls out a bottle of mace and sprays the mace in her face. And it's like, Silas is looking for you.
She body slams herself into the woman and tackles her to the ground. Like, look, I don't have vampire strength anymore, but I'm not about to get got.
Crazy. Oh, yes. And then Matt comes with a gun and is shooting at her. And then you have to assume, oh, Matt's been mind controlled as part of like the people who were at that town event where Silas slaughters Bonnie's dad, who was the mayor at the time, and then mass mind controls everyone to hunt down Katherine. Also, Matt rolling up with that shotgun, I'm sure I've said it before, the hardest he's ever looked. It was, I don't know what it is, but it worked.
With a gun?
Yeah, he just showed up with a shotgun. He was smiling in a very un-Matt way, and I was like, what is this? What's going on?
She punches the woman out after Matt arrives, and I think she hurts her hand the way one does if you punch badly, and she's like, ah! And Matt's like, yeah, it hurts, doesn't it?
Or yeah. You've never had to tuck your thumb behind your fingers instead of under them so you don't break it. There's a lesson for you, kids.
Eventually, Matt decides, yeah, I'm gonna take you back. We're gonna meet up with Damon and Jeremy, who you left for dead. I'm handing you over again. Katherine makes a comment to Matt once she knows that she's about to be turned in. She's like, those blue eyes, they made me soft. I should have ripped your head off when I had the chance.
Always.
And I'm like, really, Katherine? Even now?
Even now as he hands her over to the slaughter. God.
Indeed, it is the last, or at least the last thing she says to him, technically, in ways. This is the era in which they're basically just shuffling her around as the bargaining chip. We have discussed it in the Damon and Silas and Nadia episodes. I think she also gets sick, or at least she claims she's getting sick.
Yeah.
When she's trying to get them to stop, she's like, my throat is really scratchy, my head hurts.
Yeah, she's been exposed to the elements, right? That she ran through the woods the entire night, assumedly on like an autumn night. Of course she's sick. She's never had the flu. She's never had a cold.
Yeah, because it would have killed her back in her day.
Yeah, she hasn't developed immunities. She has no antibodies for modern viruses.
It's when they stop here that a store clerk sees her and is like, is that Elena? Is that Katherine? I've been told to look for Katherine. And Katherine's like, oh, damn it, let me start running away.
Gosh. It's rough.
And Matt is like, good lord, she tried to get away again. She's not very good at escaping them. They easily catch up to her because these are two fit young men, one of whom is a supernatural
We've got a hunter and we've got like a football quarterback. Silas catches up to them in this episode. Jeremy and Silas fight, and for whatever reason, Silas, with no mind powers, is able... Well, not no mind powers. His mind powers don't work on Jeremy, but he's still able to beat him in a fight.
Oh, yes, the hunter. Oh, yeah, that was the thing where we were like, is Silas super strong?
Right.
He didn't... Nothing had suggested that before now.
And it's like, I don't think he is, so I don't know why that works. And then he like pulls both of them onto like a tree branch. It was bizarre. I don't know.
This is also the episode where she mentions that, because I think there's a scene where she's like eyeing the shotgun and Jeremy and Matt like, don't even think about it. And she's like, oh please, I wouldn't even know how to use it. I've never used the gun before.
Right.
I was far more deadly on my own.
Back in my day, it's like, all right, Granny, it's time to get you to bed. Oh, I think she attacked Silas. It's that moment where she's like, okay, fine, I'm not gonna run.
Oh, yes, she does use the gun.
Yes, she ends up shooting Silas. And that's how they get away, and they take her back to Chez Salvatore. And then it's like, okay, let's figure out what this guy wants, who he is, how we can, like, get away from him.
And of course, she's ready and willing to leave Matt behind once she has Jeremy safely there. She's
Right,
like, yeah, that's
Matt
how I
dies.
survived for 500 years. I never looked back.
Matt gets his head snapped by Silas, and Jeremy's like, we have to wait for him to wake up because of the Gilbert ring. She's like, seems like we're wasting time.
Original Sin, the aptly named Original Sin, where we learn more about the Silas and Ketsia thing. Elena's been having dreams that Stefan is in need and he's reaching out to her and she has to go help him. And of course, everyone's like, no, it's all in your head. You just feel guilty about dumping his ass for Damon. Until Katerina shows up and is like, well, actually, no, because I've been having the same dreams.
Yeah.
Which starts us on our lovely thread this season that doesn't... We had discussed this and said it doesn't really go anywhere. And I'm like, the funny thing is, it doesn't go anywhere for Elena and Stefan. Is the thing, right? We were looking at it purely from a Stelena standpoint, where it's like, oh, the fated doppelgangers, made for each other, destined to be together, sharing dreams, and we were like, ugh, it's all for naught because Stefan and Lena never even get back together again. It's just an obstacle to make Damon feel insecure. Right. But analyzing it from a Katherine Pierce perspective, I'm like, wildly, ridiculously, this actually does a whole lot for her and Stefan. She goes with them to look for Stefan. Obviously, Stefan is not there. As we've said in the Silas episode, he's already been freed by Ketsia. So they just find this empty safe and Elena's all like, oh, I'm so guilty. He's been drowning for months and I didn't know because I was having the summer of my life. Nadia is also introduced at this time with her friend Gregor. Go back to the Nadia episode to see what that's all about.
Yeah, the Nadia episode's great and it's short. So that's fun.
She's supposedly working with Silas to find Catherine. It's like, oh, okay, she's strangely this person who's just like on his side. She seemingly betrays her friend Gregor and murders him. And it's like, what is going on here? Like, what does she want? Ultimately, her motivations are not at all what we think. Gregor is just a pawn. Silas, she doesn't want to help him at all. She's looking for Catherine because she wants her for herself.
It seems Nadia is saying she's after Catherine because Catherine killed her mother many years ago. It's another one of Catherine's sins coming back to bite her. But by the end of that episode, we learned that was like Nadia speaking metaphorically in a sense. Catherine did kill her mother.
Heavy on the metaphor. Like, you killed my mother.
Right. She inverts Elijah's metaphor, right? She works with it because she's like, Katherine Pierce killed my mother, Katerina Petrova.
Quite poetic. I do love how she dances around the issue and is like, yeah, you killed my mother. She's on the long list of people you screwed over. And Catherine's like, okay, sorry, not sorry. That doesn't make her special, sweetie. I'm so sorry. But clocks Nadia's lie and is like, yeah, there's some details in your story that don't quite add up to what I was doing when you claim I was doing it. Nadia's like, yes, it's true. I was embellishing and being poetic. You are my mother. I am your daughter, Nadia Petrova, which I'm like, okay, I don't know when you started using that name, but it's fine. I guess you found out who your birth family was. She is now the third relative that Catherine has ever gotten to meet. Mm-hmm. And while I can safely say she likes her more than Elena,
she does not seem to like her as much as Isabel.
Certainly not. We've discussed their dynamic from like the point of view of Nadia, but I do like that we get to explore because Catherine is now a human and now we're exploring like one of the most human aspects of her that we ever got to see, which was when she gave birth to this baby, very briefly was like, oh, can I please just hold my child? And her dad snatched it away. And she's described that as like one of her like first big moments of trauma. She does mention it this season, I believe. She says, oh, I was only banished at the age of 17 after having my child ripped from my arms by my judgmental father.
Real.
But even in this season, when presented with a chance that she probably never thought she'd ever have to get to know her daughter, she's like, well, too little too late. There's a lot going on right now. I don't have time for you.
And I think even that is a combination of things, right? Because it's like, one, she's now Katherine Pierce. She's lived 500 years. Becoming human has not changed her like personality aspects that make her Catherine.
Yeah.
So priority one is still herself. And right now she's being hunted down by a mortal who, at the end of this episode where we reveal Catherine's a mother, drinks her dry of her blood. So that's kind of like her main concern right now. But also, and it's a story they'll do a bit later on for a much longer arc. It's what Lily Salvatore experiences, right? But in a different way.
Yeah.
Is that like you become a vampire post becoming a mother. You live so much time as that vampire away from the trauma of your life. And then when confronted with that trauma from your past, even though it is your loved ones, your progeny, your family, they are a constant reminder of that trauma that you escaped. For as much as Nadia's a daughter, and it's like, this must be such a gift to see her hundreds of years later, it's like, but also, I'm not that girl anymore. Like, no, I don't have it in me right now to, like, be your mom. This is a lot.
That is,
So,
yeah,
that's the difficulty with this dynamic.
That is very true. That's fascinating. She's been depowered and is the weakest and scaredest she's ever been since the night that she fled from Klaus. And now it's like, here's a reminder of another time when you were weak and scared and human, who's also coming with all this emotional baggage and is also now, like, again, yet another person who is physically her superior.
500 years old. And it's like, God, don't I have enough going on?
It is quite sad, though, when Katherine reveals, contrary to what Nadia believes is the story, that Katherine just gave her up, never looked back, even when she had the means to, like, travel around and do whatever she wanted, still running from Klaus. When she's like, actually, I did go back and try to find you. I couldn't find you, though. And I hadn't mentioned this when we were dealing with season 2, but I'm curious, when Katherine found Isabel, this descendant of hers. I don't even know how Isabel proved that she was Catherine's descendant, considering that nobody seems to know where Nadia was or what she did with her life beyond that. She obviously must have had her own child before becoming a vampire, which
never comes
wild
up.
that she must have somehow abandoned that child.
Right. Well, I've never thought about that, actually. So now I'm like, is it through Nadia?
I mean, that's the thing. They say that the only reason that Elena is descended from Katherine is because Katherine had a child no one knew about.
Okay.
Which means Nadia must have had a child as well. And that's who Isabel is descended from. And I'm like, well, it doesn't really make sense that Nadia would abandon her own child after everything.
Having been
she's
abandoned
been
as a
through.
child.
But maybe
maybe
the child had a good father and she was like, you don't need me. I'm too obsessed with my mom and all that she is. Maybe she felt I wouldn't be a good mother to you.
I've got to
without
go
my own
turn
baggage.
myself into a vampire and go deal with my shit. I can't put that shit on you. Yeah, that's true. That's possible. Because it's certainly not, she's not old enough to have, like, raised her child to like 18 and sent her off to a good 15th century college, I don't know,
Yeah.
and then turned into a vampire.
Yeah, you're right. She does look quite young, so she probably left this kid when it was like a baby or a toddler.
Crazy. Maybe she gave her up for adoption.
But then again, also 15th century? So
Yeah.
maybe she had the kid when she
That's
was
probably for the better.
I wonder how much of Catherine's relationship with Isabel was through this thing of, oh, now I finally know what happened to my child, I think. I know that she did live a life and she had a family and there are descendants and you are the closest thing that I will get to a connection to the daughter that I would have wanted if life had been different and I could have had the chance to actually keep her and raise her. Because Katherine, we never really get to see her in a position where she could have screwed her over, but she seems quite fond of her.
Yeah, we don't get a lot of time with them. They were kikiing for that brief episode.
They were kikiing. They were like, tee-hee, let's figure out how to kill your birth daughter. And Isabel's like,
Right.
yeah, I wonder how much of that was like born of the Nadia of it all. And indeed, how did Isabel find out she was a senator from Catherine? I know that's her thing.
Yeah, research. She did a 23andMe, but like on steroids.
She was like, so here's your child, Nadia, who disappeared at some point, but did have a baby.
Yeah, but that's the thing, though. It's like, not to generalize, but white people have a far better shot at doing that.
That is true.
It's like, I can see her tracing all the way back to Nadia and then losing the link from Nadia to Katherine. So that's the only question I have, is that, like, how did she make that jump?
Who knows? It's one of those things they just don't answer. After Silas drains Katherine of the cure, she somehow survives. Biologically, that makes no sense. And into the next episode, we get a fun little twist on the Elena impersonation because Elena is now suspected of being a vampire by the Whitmore College people. And Katherine is like, hey, I'm your doppelganger who is now very human. Why don't I go in your stead? I can get through the door without an invite. I can do the human things. Vervain won't hurt me. I will clear your name.
And in exchange, I get to keep your college food cards, which...
Because she's starving. Oh no.
I remembered the dialogue between her and Caroline and immediately went, oh no, it's not as exciting anymore. Now it's desperate. Now it's rough.
Gosh. But I mean, Catherine, you know what?
You do what you gotta do to survive.
I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like you're this sweet person who's never hurt a fly.
No, shame. Never.
I mean, indeed, she was cured because she was trying to kill Elena. I'm like, you could have left this child alone and moved on with your life.
Ain't that the truth?
You'd even gotten rid of Klaus. Klaus had gone to New Orleans. He was not gonna come after you.
You were living life, you were scot-free, and you went, why don't I try and kill the main character just to get everything I want? And it's like, girl, have you learned nothing? When people try to kill this girl, they get obliterated from the face of the earth. Because 3 different people will jump in front of you and blast you with magic. I need you to learn.
However, Catherine being Catherine, you know, leopards don't change their spots. She once again manages to backstab because later on in the episode, she goes to West Maxfield and is like, teehee, I'm actually not Elena. My name is Catherine. I'm her doppelganger because at this point, she has realized that her human body is deteriorating.
Yeah.
Without the cure in it, her centuries of life are rapidly catching up with her.
Which is
I
one
think
of
she
the
loses
few
a tooth.
interesting things the show does. I find that so interesting and tragic. It's like, yeah, it makes sense, girl.
She now wants Wes's scientific help for this supernatural problem. A lot of faith being put in the the biochemistry of it all. When
That
you're
she's
dealing with magic.
just learned about, right? It's like, she's just learned Augustine does that shit, but it's like, and you just believe they can do it? Okay, cool. I guess they know that he has made vampires do crazy shit. They drained him of a vein and compelled him to learn about Augustine, so they do have a bunch of information about them.
In the next episode, Death and the Maiden, this is the one where we get to see all 3 of Amara's faces on screen at the same time, I believe. Amara, the immortal anchor, Catherine, the cured vampire turned human, and Elena, the newbie vamp. Ketsia is trying to do a spell
Trying to transfer the anchor status
to Bonnie.
because Bonnie's a ghost.
There's this fun scene where we've spoken about it in the later episode,
Yeah.
where she has to draw blood from her little trio of doppelganger girls. Elena's like, teehee, you can prick my finger and
I
I'll
can
heal in 2
barely
seconds.
feel it.
Catherine's like, show off. Go easy, I'm fragile these days. But this is also the episode in which Maxfield is like, yeah, you're aging rapidly and there's really nothing that I can do to stop it. So sorry.
Science can't repair telomeres yet. If we could, we'd live forever.
So Catherine's like, okay, cool. Swinging back to the mystic side of things, Ketsia, you created the first immortality spell. If you want my blood so badly, could you maybe like save me and make me immortal? Because
We're
I kind of don't want to
scrabbling
die.
here. We're scratching at straws.
Once that's all done, the anchor status has been transferred to Bonnie. Catherine's like, cool. So can I maybe find a way to extend my life magically? And Ketsia's like, well, no. Actually, I'm not doing that. Extending human lifespans is what started this entire saga. You'll just have to die. I'm gonna die.
I actively have already sliced myself up with glass, so bye, bitch.
And Catherine is like, no, you can't die. I need you. And it's like, well, too late, Catherine. Sorry, your Hail Mary is not going to work.
Sorry, my body doesn't work like yours, where I can lose most of my blood and survive. I'm dead. Bye.
Nadia then shows up and is like, well, I would love to go with you to Europe. We can leave all these Mystic Falls losers behind because we're kind of done with them now, right?
I think she doesn't want Nadia to know she's dying.
Yeah.
She's like, you don't want to deal with me. I don't know how to be this caring, loving person. You'd do far better with anyone else. And Nadia's like, all right, well, I don't know what to do then. But I'm not leaving because I've got
Rejection.
nothing else going on.
This is when the travelers start to become a part of the story. Matt uses Catherine as like a translator, which again, I think she does in exchange for like food and drink. I'm not sure. Or she might just be getting alcohol.
Kind of iconic.
He's like, I need a Czech translation. And she's like, cool, I need you to buy me booze because I've never owned a bank account in my life. She begins to commiserate with Stefan in this episode because Stefan is in his PTSD era.
Exactly.
She's like, okay, a thread tenuously starting to form between them. Then Nadia comes back in and she's like, yeah, this is my daughter, Nadia. Shocker, I know. She's conspiring with Gregor, who is possessing Matt. At this point, she can call him forth with the Vit spell. He needs to kill Catherine, which we will later on learn is because of the Traveler's
The
machinations.
doppelgangers. Yes.
Yeah, them needing there to be only 2 doppelgangers remaining. So they're like, yeah, Katherine Pierce needs to die. I don't know why they picked her. Maybe because she's an easier target than Elena.
She's human now. Yeah, it's harder to get to the vampires.
This is when Katherine reveals that, yeah, I do know that I'm descended from travelers. I just never learned traveler magic because my father was like, it comes from the devil. It's forbidden.
Wild. But it's like, were you not raised in the culture then? Like, how far back does that go? That you know that your family are travelers, but y'all are like good Christian folk.
Orthodox Christian Bulgarian folk. Maybe her father just made a decision and said, for my own self, I'm not going to do this witchy nonsense. It was the 1400s.
That's true.
Maybe some witch hunts were going on.
Yeah.
It's so stupid. I thought of Katherine saying, we are the daughters of the witches you couldn't burn.
Wrong era of witches, but I do love that.
She would never have said such a thing.
We're the daughters of the travelers you couldn't curse. Oh, God.
In this era, she tries to help Stefan through his PTSD, and surprisingly, it works. She's getting him to, like, say the names of people that he's killed. She lies with him in the safe,
gets
even
in
though
the
he's
safe.
like, girl, I'm unstable.
Yes.
I might just ripper you. And Catherine's like, yeah, I know. My spider senses are tingling, but I'm putting my life on the line.
My
here
instinct to
help you."
run to save myself is on overdrive.
It actually helps, and he gets to return the favor because at the end of that episode, Catherine's like, yeah, I suicided once before to become a vampire. Feeling like I'm going to do it again because I'm not going to grow old and die and wither away. That's gross.
Again, I'm dying on my own terms. You think I'm going to let old age natural causes take me out? No, I'm jumping off this clock tower.
Takes a dive off the clock tower in the town square. Stefan vamp speeds and catches her. And he's like, you're Katherine Pierce. Suck it up. Catherine's like, wait, Stefan saved me? I was just kidding when I spent the last 3 years claiming that deep down you still cared about me.
Right.
You actually do?
You actually do?
Wow.
This is the first moment where she hasn't confirmed. And it's like, he's worried whether I live or die? Wait.
And then she's like, maybe there is a reason to live.
Her
And
daughter,
it's not
who
my
has
long
spent
lost child.
500 years looking for her, staring at her as she says this, like, what? God.
Oh,
but also,
gosh.
not to romanticize this, but you're Katherine Pierce. You're jumping off a clock tower because you're like, there's nothing left for me. My life is over. I'm not going to be an old granny of 500 as I die. And here comes Stefan Salvatore. We all know Stefan Salvatore. We all see Stefan Salvatore. And he catches you out of the air before you hit the ground. And he's holding you up in his arms and looking into your face, heaving breaths because he's just run across the city to catch you. And he looks at you and says, you're Katherine Pierce. You're not gonna die like this. Wake up. It's like, you're not gonna look at that and go, okay, so I've picked out my wedding dress. And I have the location on file. Like,
It certainly would have convinced me. Stefan Salvatore.
but the thing about Stefan Salvatore is that he would do that for almost anybody.
Oh, that's the thing. That's the thing.
That's just who he is.
Although,
Go on.
the thread begins to unravel and then re-intertwine itself this season. In the next episode, Stefan keeps watch over Katherine to make sure she doesn't kill herself.
Right.
She's being all pouty, and he's like, well, I'm still dealing with my own PTSD. Caroline shows up.
Caroline's too involved. This whole era, this is where the storyline begins, right? Is the thing.
Yeah, it is.
This
It is,
sea
and
of
I think
weird.
I was in denial the first time round, so I probably didn't notice it. And there was a lot happening. I was still like, no, Elena and Stefan endgame. But looking back, I'm like, yeah, it is around this traveler fated doppelganger era that the thread is being pulled from that angle as well. But it's eclipsed by this bizarre Katherine and
Certainly.
Stefan thread where it's like, you're a nemesis and now you're kind of tenuous friends. And it's nothing we haven't seen before at this point, because by now we've seen the Mystic Falls gang work with Klaus.
Right.
And Damon is Damon, but he's part of the group.
Right. Stefan slept with Rebecca in season 4 when they were commiserating over their drama. It's like, certainly the ebb and flow, as you often say. It's just very particular when it comes to Stefan and Katherine, and I think that's interesting. I have thoughts on it from a Stefan perspective that I will save for later. from a Katherine perspective, it's not hard to parse. Like, she's always been mad for this guy. That's why I was very surprised by the Elijah thing and how, like, genuine you can read that to be, considering it loops right back to Stefan by this season. I guess it's because Elijah then left, so it's like, well, nothing to be found there. But yeah, it's always been Stefan for her. So of course she's fully in it.
This is actually the episode in which the safe thing comes in.
It's post him saving her.
Talking. Yeah.
Oh,
it's the safe thing is Caroline's idea. She's like, get in the safe. Catherine's then like, I'm gonna get in with you as you hyperventilated here and might just kill me. Katherine isn't completely oblivious to, the things going on in this season. She does say that, you know what, I think this doppelganger prophecy has shaken you a little bit, Stefan. You're wanting to run away from Damon and Elena and their whole orbit, and you're using me as like an excuse to stay in town. And I'm like, okay, so maybe somewhere in her mind, she's still thinking that in as much as when I speak to Damon, I'm like, it's always going to be Stefan over you. Maybe from her point of view, she's like, in Stefan's mind, it's always going to be Elena. Like, whatever might exist between us, it's always going to come second to this perfect little princess with her pink streak in her hair. I think they almost kiss. She's doing that thing when you're all tender and
hovering over him.
Which still, I wouldn't advise doing that when someone's having a panic attack.
It's deep breaths. It's try to ground them in their material reality. 5 things you can see, 4 things you can smell. No, 4 things you can... 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch.
I learned that from the Fosters.
Oh, nice.
That was cool. I had never heard of that until then.
Well, I guess you're not as mentally ill as I am.
Sorry?
No, please.
It's at the end of the episode when Stefan and Katherine are now speaking in the denouement of their little arc. He's like, yeah, you really knew what you were doing back there. She's the one who comes up close to him. As usual, she's the one instigating it. And he kisses her back. And I'm like, I wonder how much about the state Stefan is in this season, PTSD and post-Delena Endgame, is what led to him being open to this.
It's a lot of that, I think. He's in a very vulnerable spot right now, and that's not to suggest that Katherine is, like, actively trying to take advantage of him or anything. It's like, she's wanted what she's always wanted, and he is apparently willing in this moment, but also there's a lot going on in Stefan's headspace that, like, this is an interesting decision, especially with what Katherine has done to him specifically in this sphere specifically of romance and sex. And certainly afterwards in the next episode, we get fallout from that.
I think it's when they're making out at the end of the episode that I was thinking about. That's when Caroline hears them with her vampire, which I can only imagine what was going through her mind at that point.
She was like, I studied up. I got all the, like, peer-reviewed information. I was ready to help. And then Katherine swept in, and it's like, Katherine? God.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if she was aware how she felt yet.
Oh, no. I'm her inner goddess saying all this dialogue. She's not aware. That her inner goddess is saying all this.
But after a night of hot passion, the next episode, 50 Shades of Grayson, episode 10, Katherine wakes up and is like, ooh, post-coital bliss, I'm feeling myself, I'm so cool. I got Stefan back, it's been 150 years, but I finally got him back in the sack. Hold up, is that a gray hair?
Yeah. Yeah.
A whole lock of gray hair.
The age is catching up.
She runs out of the room. I think Stefan does wake up as she's leaving, but she's like, no, don't look at me. I'm not decent. I'm gonna go.
Walk of shame, walk of shame.
Does Damon know what happened?
I have no idea, and I have no interest in that. I don't want to know about Damon's opinion on anything concerning Katherine.
Not Katherine!
But this is, and I love to note, this is when Katherine starts wearing caps, which is the funniest image to me ever.
It is!
The image of Katherine having a cap on is so human to me and so hilarious. Matt is her personal trainer now.
Yeah, she's like, Matt, I'm gonna hire the fittest person in this town who's not using supernatural powers to get that way.
And who needs the money,
back into shape.
Imagine Dragons or something is playing in the background while they're training. No, it's Lord. It's Lord. Lord's Love Club is playing in the background. And I remember seeing the episode recently of being like, what a strange pull. Okay.
She's like, yeah, I'm paying you to make me hot again.
It's like, Catherine, I don't think that's the issue.
And I'm like, yeah, that's not what's holding you back from Stefan. In this scene, we start to see some other things deteriorating. Her eyes are blurry because when Nadia arrives, she can't see far enough to see who it is. Matt says something and she's like, what? And he's like, no, I'm not like being facetious. Like, I genuinely didn't hear what you just said. My hearing is going.
Oh, God.
It's like, oh no.
She's already 70.
But Matt has summoned Nadia, who's like, yeah, you tried to kill yourself without saying goodbye to me. Seriously?
Wild.
She's like, anyway, I have a plan to help you. I'm going to passenger you into a body with traveler magic. And Catherine's like, that's a great plan, except Stefan is attracted to this body. So, nah, I think I'm going to stay here. And Nadia's like, oh, so this new desire to live is about Stefan. Cool. Okay. Of course. I don't know why I thought that it would be any different.
And what further insult to injury, she goes back to Stefan to be like, about last night. And he's like, girl, I was horny and you were there. And you know what? That doesn't erase the years, decades, over a century of shit that you've pulled. So, no offense, of course.
She's like, okay, but like, I am running out of time. If there were more time and I could make amends, do you think possibly in any way there could be hope for us?
But not from one night.
Which I think is what inspires her to then be like, okay, fine, maybe Nadia had a point. Maybe I need to find a way to survive just a bit longer so that I can get Stefan's respect, get his forgiveness, and get him to fall in love with me again. Okay, I'm going to ring my daughter up and tell her that I've changed my mind. And then while she's on the phone, she has a heart attack. Like, her heart is now failing. And it's like, gosh, I was not expecting the rapid aging to catch up with her in the way that it did, because she didn't immediately like wither and turn to dust.
Visually, yeah, all the conditions are catching up. It's into the outside, strangely.
Going into the next episode, 500 Years of Solitude. This is when she's now on her deathbed.
She's mostly unconscious in this one.
But it's the fun episode where everyone's like, well, time.
Cheers.
Time for us to get our revenge. Damon is torturing her with psychic visions of all the things that she's done, the mistakes she's made, losing her family to Klaus, the friends that she's screwed over. It seems very cruel at the moment, and certainly Stefan is feeling that way. He's like, dude, come on, man. Like, she's a human woman who's like...
Gogo's on her deathbed. This is like...
And Damon's like, well, no, she's Catherine. Are you forgetting all of the stuff she's done to us? In particular, you.
Yeah.
Like, please don't tell me that after like one night of badly thought out sex that you've now decided that she's...
Just like Damon to expose him like that, to air out his dirty laundry. God damn. Just because you're insecure about the doppelganger shit, right? Because that's just to put a nail in the coffin of Elena's opinion of him.
I mean, I guess the worst thing would have been Damon deciding, let's continue with Stefan on this Catherine trajectory because it removes him as an obstacle for me and Elena. But yeah, he gives her visions of like her baby being taken away from her, finding the rest of the Petrova clan dead. He makes her see John. I think John cuts off her fingers. He's
the
like,
same way she did
hello,
his.
fingers. Goodbye, fingers. In an echo to the hello, John. Goodbye, John.
And it's like, wow, David Anders and Sarah Canning, because Jenna shows up as well.
Oh,
it's like,
yes!
y'all really
He
came
gets
back
Jenna
for
to
this
come
one
back.
episode. That's so cute.
Makes Jenna come back. The vision of her stabs, and he's like, do you remember when you made Jenna stab herself? She was so confused. We had to convince her that she walked into a knife. But it's also the episode where the Mystic Falls gang has that commiseration where they're like, yeah, let's toast to Catherine's impending doom and just talk about all the ways in which she's screwed us over. And I'm like, yeah, it's easy to feel sorry for Catherine in this era. But as they're going off just the list of things she's done to them alone, I'm like, yeah, she's been pretty bad. Jeremy's like, she fed me to Silas and I died. Tyler's like, she triggered my werewolf curse. She actually did kill me, but although I'm weirdly better for it.
Yeah, so it's like, complex, I suppose.
Damon, of course, is like, yeah, I spent 145 years waiting to get her out of a tomb, but she was never in.
And then Matt is like, if it wasn't for her, my sister wouldn't be dead. And it's
And
like,
he's like,
okay.
yes, because I wouldn't even have been in town to turn Vicky into a murderous vampire if I wasn't trying to get Catherine out of a tomb she wasn't in.
Get the Damon PR team out of the writer's room. Get the Damon rehab squad out of the script. I don't want it.
Elena comes in. Elena's like, if anyone's drinking to Catherine's last days, it's gonna be me.
Grabs the drink
And
out of
she's like,
Damon's
okay.
hand, who she's currently broken up with, I think, and drinks from it.
She's like, she impersonated me repeatedly, made Aunt Jenna stab herself in the stomach, and she cut off Uncle John's fingers. Bonnie's like, my Grams died trying to close a tomb that she wasn't in.
Real.
Elena's like, Klaus followed her to Mystic Falls, and because of that, we lost Jenna. And Damon's like, and Alaric. Matt's like, we're gonna need more booze if we keep drinking to her.
If we're moving to the third degree of these concentric rings, I think we need a whole pack here.
And while this is happening upstairs, Stefan is sitting with slowly dying Catherine, and Catherine's like, I don't have vamp hearing anymore, but let me guess, they're downstairs talking about me.
Yeah.
And Stefan's like, they're reminiscing. And she's like, no, it's fine. I'm sure I deserve everything they're saying. True to form, she's still Catherine. She's like, wait, does my hand look wrinkled to you? And Stefan is like, it looks fine. And she's like, okay, if I start to sag anywhere, you take a knife and you jam it into my carotid artery, okay? Stefan says, you know, even on your deathbed, you're vain. And she's like, hey, if a girl's gotta go, it might as well be glamorous. Stefan is being so tender with her in this scene that she's like, you're being too nice to me. Why? And he says, well, you're dying.
You're
I think I
dying.
can muster up a bit of compassion. And I guess that's what separates Stefan from Damon. It's like, he's been hurt just as much, but in this moment, he's like, I've got compassion for this weak, no longer threatening person. I can sit here and show some humanity while Damon's downstairs having a party, which I'm like, hey, you know what, Damon? I'm not going to call you wrong for that.
Feel
She's
free.
been horrible. Everybody else down there, you are well within your rights. I just think it speaks to Stefan's character and how he views himself and Catherine. That he's like,
Volumes.
I'm not going to be the kind of person you would have been, Catherine.
I'm going
going
to
to show
my own
kindness.
shit aside and show you some kindness before you see those pearly gates, because that's the kind of person I am. I mean, they've spoken about getting Catherine to do the traveler spell to jump into Nadia's body. She's offered to like traveler passenger her into her own body so that they'll share so that she doesn't die. So Nadia obviously snatches Stefan and Elena because she's buried Matt in the safe and is coercing them. She hands them over, she gets the spell, and then she comes back to Catherine and teaches it to her.
Nadia tells her that I'm going to let you passenger into my body. And then Catherine's like, even I am not that selfish. I couldn't do that to you. I wasn't able to do right by you in the past, but in this moment, I'm gonna let you go. But I think it's possible that they have a conversation.
Yes!
I think they have a conversation off screen that we don't see.
Yes, and that this is for inquiring ears in the house that are supernatural. Because then Nadia leaves in a huff and a cry, being like, fine, then die then if you want. And she leaves. And Elena, bless, trying to take a page out of Stefan's book because they've had a chat about it in a different scene, is like, okay, let me show her an ounce of empathy before she dies because I'm rising above or whatever.
It's so sad because it could have been. I mean, listen, I was a fool. I was duped.
Same.
I truly believed we were getting
A moment of like meeting of the minds. We actually come to understand each other in these last moments. It would have been such a sweet note to end on.
And it is, I think, yeah, it's the last conversation Elena and Catherine ever have.
It
in this
is.
universe.
That's crazy.
They never get to speak again. But yeah, I think Elena does acknowledge that, yeah, you were this scared girl in the 1400s who had to go on the run. You did terrible things, but you did it because you were trying to survive. Not gonna lie and say I like you.
No, please.
Or that I would have made the same choices in your shoes. But I can look at you and feel some semblance of sympathy. And I am going to, like a good Southern Christian girl, I am going to forgive you before you die. Catherine's like, oh, okay. Thank you for your forgiveness. Could you just
hand me
like
that
give me some
syringe?
painkillers over there? Just like a dying really hurts. Grabs Elena's hand
Yeah.
as soon as she gets within rage, does the traveler spell and passengers into her body. And I'm like,
so
Catherine!
it's so much more direct a flip as compared to like, because we were saying where we left her in season 3 and where we find her in season 4. Wild. This one in the same episode. They're just like, damn, Catherine, I thought you changed.
I thought you changed.
Learned.
It's almost like she can't help herself. Like she has this compulsion, no pun intended.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there's obviously the greater thing, right, of like Elena. It's where she ended off in season 4. It's like, you stole my life, blah, blah, blah. But it's also that recent experience she's had with Stefan, where she's concluded that no matter how much time I spend trying to become better and to try to become good, he's never going to see me that way. Or at least he's never going to see me the way that he sees her. So the solution is to become her and get him that way.
And I mean, we had hints of it when Nadia told her about the plan to let her passenger into someone. And she's like, well, no, the problem is Stefan likes this body. He's attracted to this body. So, of course, her vampire doppelganger is perfect. It's like, oh, good. I get to look the way I want to look, the way I think Stefan would prefer that I look. And now we can just make a shortcut through this long journey of redemption because I don't got time for that. I'll just let him love me as Elena.
Who needs to waste any time when I can steal it from someone else? Come on.
And I'm like, Catherine, would you really have been satisfied with that?
How long could you have convincingly played Elena? Because the plan is to be with Stefan forever, right? Theoretically.
Yes. She's using Matt to get a crash course on all things Elena the next episode when Nadia's like, yeah, impersonating Elena for a few minutes to steal secrets is not the same thing as becoming her forever.
Right.
You need to have someone on the inside to teach you.
They get a traveler to permanently passenger into Elena's body. She stages a dramatic breakup with Damon. She's putting all the pieces in place where it's like, this is now my life. How long living with Stefan in that house where he speaks to you like you're Elena, his sweet, kind, empathetic, in your opinion, dullest dishwater, vanilla girlfriend, in a way that won't drive you insane? At what point would you break? It's such a like, and listen, she was dying. I can understand that this was like a snap decision, but damn, girl, the long-term thinking did not apply here.
I guess she just intended to always have Matt around for like a quick... Matt is her Elena Wikipedia. Just a quick... Let me just whip out my phone and be like, Matt, what would Elena do in this situation? She's got Nadia, her poor neglected daughter, there to help her as well.
Or is it like a learning computer where with enough information that it's learned, it can now convincingly reproduce like a facsimile of that? But like, that's not real.
Maybe
Stefan's smarter than that.
Maybe her plan was to slowly pretend that Elena was changing her personality gradually.
Fair enough.
Beyond the hard work of having to be Elena forever, I was just thinking, would you be satisfied being with Stefan knowing that he doesn't think it's you?
Right.
He's in love with somebody else. This is going to be a wild ride. In the Cinderella sequel, A Twist in Time,
okay,
where by the end of the movie, she's revealed the stepmother's shenanigans with Anastasia messing with the prince's mind, and now the prince knows that, oh, Cinderella is the person I'm meant to be with. The stepmother has one last attempt to get what she wants, and she physically transforms Anastasia into Cinderella's doppelganger and says, yeah, we're just gonna capture you and send you away, Cinderella, and then Anastasia is going to marry the prince as you, and then we'll just be like rich in-laws to the royal family forever. Cinderella is like, okay, well, you're evil, that's fine, but she looks at Anastasia and she's like, Anastasia, is this really what you want? To be in this marriage with a person who doesn't love you for you and thinks you're someone else?
Right. And it's like, do you want to be me forever? Would that not drive you insane? You'd have an identity crisis. Your brain would split in half.
And Anastasia, far more pitiable, I should say, than Catherine. All she can say is, I want what you had, to have this happily ever after. And it's like, is that what Catherine felt? Is she in her own mind being like, I just want to have what Elena had, and what Elena had is Stefan?
I mean, yes. It's like, I want it all. I want the life. I want the boy. I want that happiness without worrying about like running or like worrying that'll be taken away, because who's going to take away anything from Elena Gilbert? Like I said, 16 people will jump on the wire for this girl.
That does come back to bite her though. She assumes she'll enjoy everyone fawning over her, and then she realizes, oh my god, Elena's friends never leave her alone.
They
you are constantly
incredibly insufferable. That's the other thing. You don't like these people. And they're good friends with each other. You now have to deal with these people 18 hours out of the day. Like, come on, girl.
I mean, she sows the seeds of discontent. She makes sure that Tyler finds out that Caroline slept with Klaus, which I'm like, now what was that for, Catherine?
For who and what? You thought that was going to get rid of her? Now she's going to cry on your shoulder because you're her friend.
This is the era we discussed, I think, in the Damon episode, where we're like, Katherine is just the one breaking the fourth wall, looking at the camera and being like, ugh, the characters in this show, so over the top, so
like,
annoying.
God, these people are so annoying and dramatic about their stupid little problems. Just give me a break. It's like, Katherine, you jumped into this. Oh god. And then not to bring it down from the fun and the chaos, but like also inhabiting Elena's body to get with Stefan. Somehow Katherine Pierce found a way to doubly sexually assault people.
Yep.
It's so crazy to me because Elena doesn't want that. Stefan doesn't want that. What are you doing?
It's very Faith in Buffy's body, sleeps with Riley. It's,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously she doesn't care about Elena. She was intending to just take over her life and her body entirely, which in and of itself already very much a violation. But just the idea that she's like, yeah, I'm going to trick Stefan into having a relationship with me that will get physical forever. We're both immortal.
I mean,
I'm just going to stay like this
She's
forever.
already done it by compelling him. What's a little trickery, you know? I guess.
Oh, it's so bad.
Right.
It's monstrous. Truly, like I said, it's all downhill as soon as she comes back in season 4. Because I'm like, if possible, you are worse than you were in season 3 and 2.
You've
Like,
taken
I don't
your
know that
original sin and doubled it onto the same person. It's so bad. She never gets there, thankfully.
Thankfully.
But God, was she trying.
Because before she was just delulu enough to think that what she had with Stefan was real and it didn't count because she didn't compel him to love her per se. She just compelled him to not be afraid. And she's like, no, Stefan, deep down, you want me. And as soon as I get Elena out of the picture, you'll realize that. But now it's like, no, I'm just going to trick him into being with me. That will satisfy me. That's enough for me.
We've
That's
dispelled
fine.
that delusion. I'm straight up now, just like, oh my God.
Comes up with an idea to get him to kill Damon when Damon's got the Ripper virus, and he's just like, yeah, let's just get Damon out of the
kill
picture
your
'cause he's
brother
kind of annoying.
so they don't have to deal with it.
Jeremy gets kidnapped, and her first instinct is to go, oh, Nadia, do you think if Jeremy died, because like I'm not really with Stefan yet, he's still like in that awkward like, oh, you just broke up with my brother the other day thing, but if Jeremy died and I was now like, oh, Elena, mourning, do you think that would be like a nice segue into something with it? And Nadia's like, don't be crazy. The real Elena would never let Jeremy die. And she's like, ugh, fine, I guess.
Nadia,
I guess I have to.
only sane person in anything going on in this situation. God. And ultimately, because of course they do, because this is not a sustainable long-term solution, they figure her out.
They figure it out.
There's too many loose threads.
It's also thanks to Matt with the brief message he's allowed to say, help, K. Before they cut him off.
It's like K. Who do
And
we
we're
know
like,
starts with a K?
yeah, she's been acting hella weird. And I think it's Caroline who's like, no, we would have noticed. I was like, well,
Guess not. But I mean, it's what she does, right? She's so successfully impersonated this girl numerous times. It's impressive she did it this long in one continuous bout, but it's like she was already good at it. And then she had a cheat sheet. So, Caroline, don't feel too bad, I guess.
yeah, but I mean, once Elena comes back and we see how she feels about it, I'm like, yeah, guys, your own friends. Because the thing is, and I guess this was in an era where Stefan knew Katherine was alive and around. Stefan was always the one clocking that, wait a minute, this isn't Elena.
That's true.
But now even he is like, well, I have no reason to think that this wouldn't be Elena. I know that this is physically her, and Katherine is dead.
As you're saying that, I'm like, God damn it. And I'm going to have to sing Stefan's praises again. He's the one to figure it out when Katherine kisses him. And he tells Elena afterwards, as soon as she kissed me, I immediately realized she wasn't you. And it's like, even in Elena's body, he knows when it's not her.
Gosh, I wonder what it was. It's like, does she use the same
technique.
lips in a different way? He's like, I know that technique, and I know these lips doing that technique, and that's Catherine's
She goes for the
kiss.
bottom lip because she's more dominant in her style, whereas Elena stays on the top one.
I can believe that. I can absolutely believe. He's like, she has a more aggressive style. style, which there's nothing wrong with it, but it's just not how Elena does it.
Yeah, it's like she bit me and drew blood, which I don't remember Elena ever doing that. It seems kind of sus.
But then the mission becomes, okay, we need to get Katherine back here so that we can use the traveler knife to expunge her from Elena's body. Of course, Katherine is smarter than that, but also they go about it very badly. As we said in the Nadia episode, they're all hounding her. They're all calling her, pretending it's for seemingly different reasons. They're like, hey, Elena, I'd love to see you today. Hey, Elena, where are you? Hey, Elena, could you come? She's like, okay.
You're all calling me in a 10-minute window, guys.
So they know. I also think by this time, Nadia has been bitten by Tyler, who was on his own side aware of the fact that she was manipulating Matt in some way with compulsion and got into a scuffle with her. So now it's like, okay, Nadia's dying of a werewolf bite. Katherine, you know the only way to save her is with Klaus's blood. But to do that, you'd have to expose yourself to Klaus. And I'm like, maybe she could have at least tried the thing of like, I'm going to pretend to be Elena. But Klaus would have probably been like, why would Elena care about this
random
girl,
woman?
Nadia?
Also, why would Elena come to me, a person who's largely ruined her life? That's crazy.
So ultimately, even though Nadia does spend a bit of the episode hoping that maybe Katherine will call Klaus, Katherine's like, well, no, I can't do that. I'm going to ask Wes Maxfield if he can whip up a cure. That doesn't work out. Wes is like, no, there is no scientific cure. Not in this show anyway.
Not yet. Give it 3 years, baby.
So eventually the Mystic Falls gang is like, okay, cool. So she knows. We're just going to call her and be honest with her and be like, Katherine, we're going to need you to come on over. How is it that they get a hold of Nadia again?
She has a wolf bite, so she's like delirious and like all over the place. So I think they just grab her. It's not hard
Which
to
is
do.
ultimately what draws Katherine back in. She's like, well, I'm not about to leave Nadia to die on her own.
Yeah.
I could run. Which is what they tell her. They're like, Katherine, you could run, or you could come back here.
For
say
the
goodbye
one
to the only
person
person who's
who's
ever
ever
really
met you.
loved you unconditionally.
Yeah, that's the key word, isn't it?
Nadia, sadly, is quite delirious at this point. She keeps slipping out of lucidity and saying, oh no, my mother, Katherine Pierce, she's a monster. She lies and manipulates. She's screwed over everyone that she's ever met. And I'm like, it's kind of sad that that's Katherine's lost memory of her. I think she does get inside her head and give her...
Lost memory.
But I do still think that Nadia continues to like slip in and out of that. And I'm like, oh, Katherine, I'm sorry that you could have died peacefully in your room.
Hey, yeah,
forgiveness,
you picked
Elena's
this role,
forgiveness.
girl. I'm sorry. Your daughter was trying left and right to get you to leave with her to Europe and then fought tooth and nail to passenger you into her own body. And you went, but what if I got what I wanted? And ultimately, that's what caused this.
She says goodbye to Nadia. She does tell her that the only way I could have saved you would have been through Klaus, and I couldn't risk that. And I'm like, kind of selfish, but also Klaus would probably have been like, I'm not going to kill you, but I am going to let you watch your daughter die just to spite you.
Klaus would never have helped her.
Eventually, Nadia dies. Katherine just says, sleep well, your mother loves you. And it's like, aww, look at you, you monster, but you did have people you cared about.
You did. And it's like, did you ever stand a chance in that respect of like, could you have been that good mother? Or were you too far gone? Were you too far broken by like life and the choices you've made and the person you've become? As with a lot in Katherine's story, there's a sense of tragedy to that.
Yeah, much like her bestie Isabel, who, when she was about to die, told Elena that, yeah, there is some small part of me that regrets that I could never be the mother that you deserved. But yeah, look at me now. You wouldn't want this.
I made this choice and I will regret it for the rest of my life. And ultimately, I can't be the person you need. It sucks.
So Katherine, once Nadia is dead, is like, okay, cool. One last attempt to vamp speed away.
Honey.
But Damon is there and is like, no, you're not going anywhere.
There's like 3 vampires, a hybrid, an anchor witch, maybe. Like, you're not going anywhere.
Katherine's like, okay, so who's got the knife? Which one of you is going to get to kill the elusive Katherine Pierce once and for all? And then they're all like awkward silence. She's like, oh, what? Suddenly everyone's speechless? When I was on my deathbed, you all had plenty to say.
Oh, gag them, girl.
And then I like this. She does like her own POV version of like listing the sins that she's committed, or at least the relationship she's had with each of these main characters. She goes to Tyler first and she's like, is it you, Tyler? Because I triggered the werewolf curse, gave you an identity and made you matter. And Tyler's like, you've done nothing for me.
And that's meta too, right? Because he didn't matter in the story before that. He
really
didn't matter to the main plot until he turned.
And she's like, oh, please, Tyler, if I hadn't walked into your life, you'd just be a wasted nobody with a boozy mom and a temper problem. And I'm like, not you mentioning the dead mom.
Right?
Catherine, no.
Freshly killed.
Tyler like almost takes a step towards her and Caroline's like, no, Tyler, don't do that. And then Catherine's like, oh, Caroline. She's like, you I'm not worried about because we both know I made you better by making you a vampire. Caroline doesn't disagree. She's just like, goodbye, Catherine.
Yeah, that's good. Don't give her
Which
the satisfaction.
made me think of at the end of Masquerade.
Yes.
Catherine says, bye-bye, Caroline. Then she moves on to Matt, which I love this exchange. She says to Matt, I'm the one girl here who actually appreciates how beautiful you are.
Real.
You wouldn't stab me in the heart, would you, Maddie Blue? No, I don't think so. Then she sighs and is like, you will definitely go down as the best night I never had. Oh well. Then Matt's like, oh well.
Oh well. Because you know he would have done it. Come on.
He would have done it. I mean, well,
that would have given him some psychological issues post because
probably,
but he would have done
the Elena of it all. And I was like, I love that her last thing to Matt is that if I'd only had the time, I would have rocked your world. I was
quote
just so
tweeted
busy with
him
other
and said
things.
would expeditiously.
She goes to Jeremy and she's like, well, little Gilbert, it was nice to have a brother for a second there when you weren't being so damn annoying. Bonnie once again paid dust because she says, Bon, no need for goodbyes. I'll see you on the flip side. Because Bonnie's the anchor.
Hey.
And then she goes to Damon. She's like, how you would love nothing more than to drive that blade right through me. And Damon's like, we've already done that, kitty cat. I've said all I needed to say. Because, of course, Damon said all his last goodbyes.
Like, no, actually, I have some shit to say to you.
And then she gives her fake apology, which I'm like, you know what? Actually, the most honest she's been with this man in a while. She says, I'm sorry. You blame me for the way you are. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I turned you. I'm sorry that you didn't die as a forgotten nobody on a bloody battlefield. And your father didn't get to live another day to be disgraced by you. Damon, I'm sorry that I gave your life purpose, passion, drive, desire. I'm sorry that you are who you are because I'm the one that taught you how to love. And I'm like, ooh.
Real.
You did teach him how to love and he's worse for it.
He's worse for it, but ultimately you did it. You molded that man. He's in your image and he's out there doing your dirty deeds, Miss Ma'am.
Damon says, I'll see you in hell, Catherine. Then she moves on to Stefan and she's like, Stefan, you know, I've always wondered how it would be like to be loved by you. And I'm like, but you were loved by him, girl, for at least a few days or weeks before you ruined it. But I guess her bringing it back to their brief 21st century connection this season, she says, you've got to admit, for one fleeting moment, your feelings were real. It truly has been the role of a lifetime. Stefan, I love you, and I've always loved you. And I'm like, I love that even in this moment, she's genuinely here. She's like, I'm just a girl standing in front of a boy that she
She thinks she's in Notting Hill. She thinks she's in the rom-com.
Stefan, to his credit, doesn't say a word to her. He stabs her with the traveler's knife. I think any goodwill she had built up has been burned, and he now feels worse about her than he did in season 2.
Imagine you could have gone out on a good note with Stefan Salvatore in your 500 Days of Solitude episode, and you choose to do this to him. Not just to him, but to the girl he has loved for years and will love for a lifetime. How many times can you shoot yourself in both feet with this man that you love? I don't understand.
Truly Delulu till the end. As she dies, she says, then I guess this is how our love story ends.
Girl!
And she dies in his arms. She sinks to the ground. Matt catches her as she falls.
Of course, Matt.
And it's like, Catherine, this isn't a love story. This is a cycle of violence and abuse and manipulation.
To the end. Delusional. I love it. Ultimately, the lesson from this, she will never change. Oh, and I think we've said it before, but it is very poetic that Stefan is the one to do it right at the end there. Elena was not available to do it. And honestly, she had her moment with the cure at the end of season 4. Damon has had a dozen moments because the show is very happy to give Damon his little snappy scenes where it's like, I'm actually over you and I don't care and let me put you in your place, little woman. But like Stefan has never properly gotten a moment to close out this chapter with Katherine. And this is a very good moment for them.
Beautiful bookend to their relationship. Katherine does have one last scene with Bonnie. She reveals that teehee, before I surrendered myself, I injected Elena with
the Ripper virus.
Venom tainted Ripper virus.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that's how I'm going out. Katherine Pierce was not about to go gentle. And now that I've revealed that Elena is doomed and will probably take a few innocents down with her, I'm ready to go. And I think maybe some part of her thought maybe somehow in an afterlife, I'll find Nadia or find peace and then go be with her. And then she touches Bonnie and nothing happens. And she's like, hello, Bonnie, let me pass through. And Bonnie's like, I'm not doing anything. This has never happened before. I don't control it. Katherine's like, then who does control it? Suddenly, the doors to the church that they're in blow open. This gust of wind sucks Katherine back. She tumbles back over the floor, tries to gain her footing by grabbing onto the pews and the carpet, but she is sucked out into the night after Bonnie says, I'm sorry, Katherine, I can't help you. She disappears into the, what is it? The hell that is in the sky.
Yes, the skylight door to hell. Because we were like, the trap door opened up and you were like, no, it's in the sky. I think it's so funny that they do it in a church too. It's so like on the nose, but I like it. It's like, ooh, her sins.
For the longest time before we got to season 8, where we now learned about hell sort of being a thing that exists, people were just like, oh, Katherine went to hell. Like, she...
Only thing that makes sense.
Apparently the worst person who's ever existed in this world. Silas gets to go to the other side, but she gets sucked into hell.
Which is like, I mean, now that we've gone through like 12 hours of this shit, it's like, yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Because I think when we discussed this last time and I was like, God, Silas sucks, it was probably because we were talking about Silas. But like, what does Silas do really? He cheats on his wife, which obviously, then he gets put in the ground for 2,000 years. Right? So he's not really alive for most of time. He then starts obviously slaughtering a lot of people in present day. But no more than any other villain in this show has done, right? His biggest sin is being annoying. That's Silas's biggest sin, is just being like really insufferable, especially at his most indulgent. Katherine has like burned down cities, metaphorically speaking. Katherine has ruined lives, in addition to all the slaughtering she's done.
Yeah.
Like the only other people above her who should fast track to hell, Klaus, Kai, who presumably did, because there was no other side when he died, he went straight to hell. I can't think of anyone else who's worse, to be honest. Cole, I guess, among the originals. Yeah, it would be those two of the originals, Klaus and Cole.
I mean, I don't know much about Cole's long history that would make him worse than, say, Elijah and Rebecca.
I just think he's killed more than them. He has a very malicious energy, Cole does.
Yeah.
That's like masked with a veneer of playfulness. Before the originals, where we start being like, and all these originals are super sympathetic and tragic. The vibe is definitely that Cole is like kind of monstrous.
Well, except for Finn, who is apparently now very evil.
Right, except for Finn, who doesn't get shit, when he's the only one who's not a monster like the rest of his siblings.
Finn suddenly is like, yeah, Finn was not just this depressed, suicidal dude who hated his nature. No, now he'll kill infants and attack children.
Finn, whose only crime was being boring, right? Whose only crime was loving his mother a little too much, and it's like, no, you get to be the villain now. What? Come on, guys.
But yeah, Katherine gets to go to hell, and I'm like, yeah, Katherine, your crimes...
But hey, she gets to hell and runs it, so...
She gets to hell and, true to form, finds a man, and she's like, oh, hell is run by a man. Perfect. Wraps him around her finger.
We never see this. You just have to take it on good faith.
She somehow wraps around her finger because we learn that all the decisions that Cade makes regarding the Salvatore brothers in season 8, rather than being inspired by anything Stefan and Damon have done or anything that Sybil might have been trying to plot. No, it's because in my own capacity, someone's been whispering my ear and convincing me that this might be fun to do. At the end of the season, it's revealed that that person is Katherine Pierce, tricks the Mystic Falls gang into killing Cade so that she can take over hell.
just go back to the Siren episode, Sybil and Celine, because we talk about the devil a lot in there, believe it or not, and just listen there for my absolute bafflement as to how this happened. Like, not to doubt Katherine and her skills, but what? The psychic, extra-dimensional, immortal devil who only had one vulnerability, which was this knife.
And who surely should have been able to read her thoughts and know
because
everything
he's psychic
about
and
her.
runs hell where everyone is, and he can jump into people's heads. Gave not only a seat in hell, but a view to everything that was happening in the world for some reason. Listened to what she was saying and did it. Not for a second considering what is her ulterior motive, let me read her mind. And then got tricked out in a hostile takeover. It's like, that's the one person Katherine shouldn't be able to fool. Because none of your tricks work on the devil who is psychic. I don't know. It was a strange move.
If Cade was the Judeo-Christian idea of the devil, I'd say, okay, so he's evil personified. Maybe he genuinely fell in love with Katherine as well because she's so bad. And that's what made it blind to her antics. But like, it's like, no, he doesn't enjoy other people's evil necessarily. He likes dragging them to his domain to be tormented for the things they've done.
Which, I mean, in itself, there's a self-delusion to Cade because he believes everyone has the capacity for evil, therefore everyone is evil and I will punish them because people burned me however long ago. But ultimately, he is still like a man, which in any other circumstance would make him more vulnerable to Katherine. But Cade seemingly was like asexual, maybe, is the vibe I was getting. Maybe that's a read from my end. He was giving very like devout monk vibes.
I mean, even if he was heterosexual, like you mentioned, the psychic thing just means immediately, no matter what Katherine tries,
he knows.
He would know. And he's probably seen, he dragged her to hell personally. He probably knew exactly who she was.
Yes! Oh, it makes less and less sense the more you think about it.
And honestly, maybe if Nina Dobrev had been able to come back for more season 8 episodes, there would have been more of an arc. Yeah, for Katherine being there. But unfortunately, she comes back at the very end. Episode 16 of season 8, I was feeling epic. By this point, Vicky Donovan and Kelly Donovan have come back as like these specters from hell and reveal that they're working with Katherine to burn the town with hellfire.
Wild.
And destroy Mystic Falls, because apparently that's what Katherine wants now. She just wants to destroy Mystic Falls. It will gain her nothing.
Nothing. She'll still be in hell. She doesn't get to come back to life. And if she's the queen of hell, she can just do that if she wants. The burning of Mystic Falls gains her nothing. Spite, I guess. Revenge. And then what?
I like that the last thing she does is arguably the most insane. She's like, yeah, my last hurrah is to just burn this entire irritating town to the ground. Wish I'd never come here. Screw all of you.
I mean, people could just move. You've burned the town and now they just live elsewhere in Virginia. Katherine? I don't know.
She also gets to impersonate Elena one last time because Elena, at that point, her coffin's been removed. Katherine shows up pretending to be Elena and pretending to have woken up, and she's like, I'm awake. Oh my gosh. This time, which, this small detail might make you hate everything.
Boy.
This time it's Damon who realizes it's not Elena.
Yeah.
Took you 8 seasons.
Because he's a true love now. Oh, I forgot to say in season 5. Oh, I've said it in other episodes where Silas tells Damon something where it's the story being like, well, Damon was never actually truly in love with Katherine. It's Elena who's his true love. So it's like, yeah. And only now he gets it. And also, Stefan's with Caroline now. There's a whole, by now I don't care. He shouldn't get it.
He's like, all I see are blondes now. I don't know how to tell these brunettes apart from each other.
Truly, because we had Valerie too.
In a season where all the episodes are named after like quotes, like iconic lines from the series. I love that Katherine shows up and starts like spouting off her own. When she reveals herself to Stefan and Damon, she's like, "Hello, brothers." As a callback to Damon's first line in season 1. They try to interrogate her about what she's up to, and she's like, "Well, that's for me to know, and for you to dot.
All the classics. It's like, when did you hear Damon saying that? I guess in the Hell books, where you paged through his memories? I don't know.
I'd love to read your Vampire Diaries expanded lore. The Hell books.
I would have to assume she has access to their lives.
Maybe there are hell books, and she somehow managed to find her files and destroy them, so Kate didn't know any of her tricks and tactics, and that's
she
how
snuck
she
into his office and pulled out her manila folder and threw it out the window. Are there buildings in hell? I have questions.
Who knows? That's when she tells them that I've had him wrapped around my finger since the minute I stepped into hell, which could be hyperbole, but it's like apparently she's been working this angle since the middle of season 5.
All right, sure. She's been slowly over the course of 5 years getting closer to the devil. All right, screw it. Who cares anymore? It's the last episode.
She says to them, "Why do you think he wanted you?" "Because I wanted you." And it's like, okay, so apparently this has all been your continuing obsession with these boys.
All the like existential questions of like morality and violence and sin that Cade has been like thrusting on these boys. Nonsense, I guess. Just you pushing. Okay, cool. Fine.
The one thing I will say is that it seems at least she's no longer in love with Stefan.
Wow.
Because she's like, I'm going to burn this town to the ground. Elena's body that I've hidden somewhere will burn with it. And my guess is that one of you will probably die here with her, trying to save her. And I'm like, okay,
good
girl,
for you.
I guess.
Yeah, finally moved past it.
They stab her with the magic knife.
Dagger. A dagger made of her own ashes. Right? That's the thing, to kill a hell regent or whatever.
A hell monarch? I don't know. Because they had her bones. Yeah, it's like made of her own like bones that have been heated to turn into like, I don't know.
Bone dust?
Gloss. Like, I don't think that's how bones work.
Glass?
It might not have been gloss. It might have just been like really hard bone. I just don't think that's how bones react to heat. But it's magic. It's fine.
It's
fine.
magically done. Okay, great. Wonderful. By who? Who's a witch at this point? The twins?
Incendia.
I guess they went Ashen Dagger and they just made it. Okay, cool. I thought they put it in a kiln.
Whatever they're trying to do to Katherine, it's not taking because she keeps resurrecting in this episode. It seems that they can't properly kill her since she's technically just a hell ghost.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think anything really eventful happens in this episode. But ultimately, they are able to defeat her when Stefan sacrifices himself to stay behind and make sure that she stays in town as the hellfire comes out and burns her, because apparently that's the one thing that could destroy her.
Yeah,
so I don't know. Is it that she gets sent back to hell and is stuck there, or has she been destroyed along with hell?
I don't know.
I think it's the latter, because Vicky gets to go free. And the thing was that Vicky could only be released from hell if Katherine, the new ruler, let her out.
Okay.
And that was why she had Vicky and Kelly working for her. Later on, we see that Vicky's found peace with Tyler, of all people. So I think it's that hell is just destroyed when Katherine, its ruler, is destroyed.
Yeah. That makes sense, I guess. Because if she was able to come back, then that means that the dagger they were killing her with was just sending her back to hell. Because that's what they did that's what they were trying to do with Kai, till they just trapped him in a psychic dimension. Or rather, what Kai was trying to help them do to Cade. Because that's what happens to Cade, right? It's not that he is, like, killed. It's that he's sent back to hell, I think. And, like, Cade doesn't have a way to
How does she then take over, though?
I don't know.
I thought he was...
Never mind. It's nonsense. Nothing is... Whatever. They destroy hell, they destroy her. It's okay. Listen, season 5 was a better exit than this. This was like a rehash, and
it's clumsily done. Just the very idea, right, that Katherine is the final boss for the series. I'm like, really?
Someone who was eclipsed in the season she was introduced, and in a way that made sense.
Yes.
Right? It's not to her detriment. She is an excellent villain throughout, but she's definitely not, like, the most powerful of anyone in this universe. That's why she's always been, like, a long running. By, like, season 4, 5, she's more of, like, a nuisance than, like, a villain. So to position her as like, and the ultimate evil is defeated, the greatest hero of the team makes the big sacrifice. It's like, all right, why the devil then?
Especially in a season where Elena, the person that she is the dark counterpart to, is not even
present.
a character in the show anymore. Like, I know she's a big part of Stefan and Damon's stories, but they had put that to bed. They'd both said their goodbyes to her.
Right. The shadow and the villainy is standing in diametric opposition to Elena. So without that, what is she doing here?
Like I said, maybe if Nina Dobrev had been available for the whole season or more than one episode, they could have done something that made sense. But really, I just feel like bringing Katherine back, I'm like, Katherine being in hell was fine. Her going to hell or going into oblivion, it was fine. We were done with her. She said her goodbye. She got to have her moment of humanity with her daughter. Because now we just hit the same notes again. She dies again with Stefan as he sacrifices himself. And I'm like, yeah, but we've already seen the end of your quote-unquote love story.
Yeah. I'll just pretend that doesn't exist the way I pretend the last
The way you
6
pretend a lot
episodes.
of the stuff in the later season.
Right.
Season 8, I mean, this is not an indictment on Katherine. This is a symptom of just season 8 as a whole. It's a
Yeah, everyone gets tarred with that
season.
brush. Yeah.
Well, I guess that's all she wrote for Katherine Pierce.
What a tall order.
She goes from being this mysterious specter looming over the plot to this very interesting, dangerous villain to then this sympathetic victim of worse villains that come along to then this reluctant ally of the heroes who then dips out, comes back, and is suddenly more evil than she's ever been. Then kind of just becomes this cartoonish clown. Yeah. Then dies, and it's like, okay, we're going to bring her back one last time to be the devil.
To be the literal devil, not the devil we just killed. She's the real one, I promise. It's like, guys, she's just an idea at this point. She's not even a real person anymore. God damn.
But I will say, always fun to watch her on screen.
All the time.
Nina's having the time of her life playing her.
Even at her worst, Katherine is fun to watch.
Even at her worst, she's better than Maxfield and Marcos.
Outsells. Triple platinum versus 100 copies at the grocery store. Like hydrogen bomb versus coughing baby. Katherine Pierce and Wes Maxfield. Outsells Damon easily the moment she shows up. But again, we've said it enough times. Maybe it's a function of the show being long running. Maybe it's a function of the show wanting to bend to the whims of its fans for whatever reason. I never think that's a good idea. Maybe it's the show realizing that like the draw of it is these sorts of characters who are like kind of not real, you know? It's seriously, Damon and Katherine.
Because they bring Kai back too.
Right, and Kai, it's like dialing these characters up because it's like, well, this is the thing people love. And then it just like ruins them as characters. Maybe ruins is dramatic, but like it becomes a lot harder to make sense of them because they can never grow. They're always regressing because you deem them to be more interesting when they're villainous.
Yeah.
At least Katherine is a villain when she's doing that. For Damon, who is ultimately a protagonist in the story, when they do that to him, it's like, guys, what are we doing here?
Maybe the idea to bring her back for this final season in some capacity would have been more interesting if they'd gone the book route, much like Once Upon a Time, and had this hellscape underworld sort of place, a place that you
in
actually
hell.
descend, like you descend into, and then she is one of several past defeated villains who they come across.
And hell looks like a dark mirror of the real world that you live in, so we don't have to build a new set. I think that's
There we
genius.
go. The orange tinted storybook.
Exactly. People were clowning on that, and I'm like, guys, that's the most brilliant production decision we could have made. We can use all the same sets. We change the lighting and a little bit of decor. Hades was underwhelming, unfortunately, but I've never seen that movie, so I don't super care. I'm just mad he wasn't gay, because it's like, even I know that, having never seen the movie. Like, what are we doing?
Then at least maybe we could have gotten some insight as to the structure of hell and how on earth she could be manipulating anybody.
Right. Where are the hell books? Where are the board meetings that they have about the hell stocks? Because as we discussed, hell is capitalistic. Cade was running a Fortune 500 hell company and was trying to get as many souls as he could for some reason.
For some reason. All those souls that I guess disappear once hell is destroyed. They just go into oblivion because there's nowhere else they can go. There's only peace and
I
Kate's
guess if
little hell.
Vicky
So I guess
got to peace, then maybe... But she had figured her shit out. Yeah. Similarly to the other side falling apart, if you didn't figure it out in time, sucks to be you.
So I guess Silas and all the other people who were there just
Actual
don't
oblivion.
exist anymore.
Ceasing to exist. The second death. Terrifying.
I do believe Catherine would have found a way to escape that as well. Like, she's on the edge of the multiverse with Galactus and the Phoenix Force and whatever other cosmic entities.
She's
are there.
with
She's like,
the
now
knower.
wait,
She's
let
with
me
eternity.
make a deal.
She's with the
Finds
Beyonder.
Cthulhu. A wild ride, but still one of my favorite characters in the show.
Without question.
Certainly one of my favorite villains. I think, yeah, she's my favorite villain. Kai is a close second, only because Klaus, they try to stop making him a villain at a certain point, and I'm just like, well, that's silly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I
the
think
whole
I would
Clara line
agree
nonsense.
that Catherine is my favorite. Let's go through them. I'm not going to count, like, arc villains who occur in between, like, main antagonists who then, like, you know, whatever. Like, Trip Cook.
Yeah.
Like, okay. But also, go back to the Trip
Uncle
Cook
John,
kilobyte.
Anna.
Uncle John. Okay. Anna, personally, not a villain. I stood with my good girl.
Yeah,
Anna.
not really.
She did nothing wrong.
Frederick the Tomb Vampire.
Right. It's like, all right, guys, small chump change. Damon, Catherine, the originals, Esther, kind of. Even her, I'm like,
Esther.
Esther's a big one for me. Because
She's certainly more of a villain in the spin-off than she is in Mystic Falls.
Yes, so that's a longer conversation of like, a matriarch is always going to sit well with me. That's something I love. An evil matriarch. Ooh. And I like Esther because Esther's like, this is for the benefit of humanity. And she is killing her children. It's like,
Yes.
I love that. You could never tell her she's doing something wrong.
Atoning
And from
for
a
her
certain
mistake.
perspective, she isn't. She's undoing her mistake. She's ridding the world of these monsters, but it's like, God damn, mama, those are your kids. There's a lot going on with Esther. That's why I love her. That's why I like Lily too, but she never gets the runway to be like a good villain in terms of like how she's written, because she's always at the whims of these men, which is a shame. Enzo, The Travelers, Julian, The Sirens are fun. I don't think they're particularly interesting villains.
They're not.
Yeah, it's gotta
Silas?
be Catherine. Silas is fun. Silas pre the doppelganger reveal is pretty up there as well.
When he's the Spectre looming over season 4.
Spectre Silas is pretty good because the fun and the terror of like, he could be anyone. Nothing you see is real. Trust nothing. When he had Klaus bent over, crying in pain, thinking he had a piece of the white oak steak snapped in his body, and he didn't. Had Caroline walk in there pretending she was gonna try and help him, and then was like, please, you thought I was Caroline? It was still me. Season 4 Silas is an underrated villain. Yeah, it's gotta be Catherine, Silas, Kai for me.
Okay.
And then Esther's like in the tier just below that.
And then way on the other end of the list at the bottom, we've got Julian, Marcos,
Wes Maxfield.
The Armory, I suppose.
Yeah, Alex St. John, you know, and her armory goons, okay. And then somewhere in the middle is like Trip Cook, the devil,
Just the devil. I guess that's all it is to say for our favorite villain.
And can I say, excellent job. I know you were looking forward to this, and I think you did this character the hugest justice.
Thank
Put me
you.
to shame, certainly. I'm like looking back and being like, God, I wish I put in that much effort in anything in my life, but also these episodes. So I'm gonna shape up.
May have overindulged myself a little bit at certain points.
It worked out in the end. It balances out.
But yeah, thank you for listening, guys. If you have any questions or thoughts, you can mail us at animalattackpod@gmail.com, or you can tweet us at animattackpod. That's at ANIM attackpod. You'll find our link tree in the bio, which has all of our online stuff.
We just got a Blue Sky, so if you're one of those people diving ships on Twitter, We've got one. We have not posted anything.
That slowly sinking ship.
We're prepping.
It sinks and then it floats back to the top and then it sinks again.
Just so you know, if ever suddenly Twitter disappears for whatever reason, we have Instagram, we have a TikTok, and we have a Blue Sky now. So Instagram and Blue Sky will have updates, at least going forward. Instagram I've backfilled. Blue Sky, I don't think I can do it. It took me so long to do Instagram and I was tired. I've got a job. I've got some semblance of a life. Come on. But if Twitter goes down, then Blue Sky is where you'll find all those updates, and Instagram is where you'll find them as well if you prefer Instagram. So no worries, we will still be here.
But until next time, that's all from us. Thanks for listening and goodbye.
Cheers.